The 7 Laws of Seduction: How to Attract Beautiful Women and Enjoy a Supercharged Sex Life. The Seduction Community: A Brief History. There have been a great many books and manuals over the years, and certainly since the 70s, that have tried to teach men how to pick up women, although the early titles were very rudimentary and perhaps not always that comprehensive. Certainly, the genre had an image problem, as these books were frequently sold from small ads at the back of magazines and had the same somewhat tarnished, furtive reputation as porn. The advent of the internet changed all of that. Suddenly, forums sprung up mainly from the US but also from the UK and other countries' spaces where men could talk to one another about what was becoming known as pick-up, or the art of attracting women. Aspiring pick-up artists could compare notes and experiences, and slowly, over time, a consensus regarding fundamental principles that seemed to work consistently was reached. Through these forums, a number of gurus rose to fame, some operating under internet handles like Mystery Eric Vaughn Markovic and Tyler Durden Owen Cook, who now runs the very successful dating and self-development company RSD, as well as Paul Janka and Baxter and others, many of whom are still active today. The book that blew up the whole movement and attracted mass attention was The Game by Neil Strauss, 2005, an international bestseller that charted the lives of Mystery, Tyler, Papa, and others and revealed many tricks of the trade. Previously, the community and the dating companies emerging from it had largely offered clever lines, stories, and techniques for guys to use when interacting with women. But now that the scene had been brought to mainstream attention, there was even talk of a pickup movie. For a long time, many pulled back from using scripted gags and routine stacks, afraid that their targets would recognize them. Instead, a new focus developed on studying the techniques used by so-called naturals, guys naturally good with women, to see if what they did, which was ad hoc and unscripted, could be replicated by other men like me who had previously had no reliable system for approaching and engaging with girls. I had previously read advice online from the likes of David D'Angelo, but as for many other men, the game was a game changer for me. I read it voraciously when it came out, fascinated both by Mystery's insights into human psychology, and by the way, Game was shown to change the lives of those who studied it. As soon as I'd put it down, I went online and joined a forum called the London Seduction Society, which changed my life forever. I was determined to learn as much as I could about meeting and seducing women. I read as much as I could online, chatted with other enthusiasts, and most importantly, began going to nightclubs, bars, and daytime venues, putting into practice everything I was learning. The results were astounding. Finally, I was able to piece together a framework based on my previous experiences coupled with these new external influences, a framework that allowed me to meet, engage, have sex, and enter into relationships with a wide variety of women. The anti-game movement, after the initial excitement around these new techniques for attracting women had died down, a new strain of content critical of seduction material started to appear. These blogs and websites took issue with some of the more flashy tricks advocated in the early days of the movement. Their general view was that the idea of getting good at seduction was an illusion, that there is nothing to be learned, as women are the sexual selectors, and they select based on narrow criteria, such as looks, height, and money. This view is patently wrong, and what is ironic is that the more subtle advice of many of these writers, which essentially boils down to approach, but don't make much effort. If she likes you, she'll let you know, is in itself just another form of the game, and not necessarily a bad one. Whenever any man approaches a woman hoping to have sex with her, he is using a technique of some kind, even if this technique is simply, I have no idea what I'm doing, so I'm just going to talk to her and wing it. So you might as well use an informed technique rather than not. While I would agree that there is no magic bullet for instantly achieving great results, I can say from personal experience that by internalizing the principles I outline here, the 7 laws, and by taking massive action, that is, by actually going out and approaching many women and refining, you will be more successful. Now, after over a decade in the game, I have a whole raft of experiences to draw from, meeting and seducing women who were previously strangers in London, Manchester, New York, Moscow, Paris, Barcelona, Berlin, Ibiza, and North Africa, to name but a few. I have met girls in nightclubs, bars, restaurants, shopping malls, hair salons, on trains, in offices, and on airplanes. I have spoken to women on public transport and in the street, and ended up sleeping with them within hours, sometimes even minutes of having met them. I have dated PhD students, strippers, dancers, waitresses, air hostesses, students, athletes, goths, fashion designers, and models. I have had sex with them in my home, their homes, on public transport, in nightclub bathrooms, and in the more risque nightclubs in plain view of other clubbers. I don't claim to be the world's greatest seducer, but I do have a lot of significant reference points, as well as an abiding interest in the psychology of human interactions. As a man, your greatest asset is time. I have spent many years in the field, suffering setbacks and piecing together a set of principles that I present to you here, which can be consumed within just a few hours. Conserve your time and energy. The problems for the novice student of pickup material is the sheer volume available, ranging from books, websites, and forums to DVD sets, blogs, and more. How do you know where to start, and more importantly, how do you know whether or not the advice you're reading or watching is any good? Make no mistake. Some great content is out there, much of it free, and I recommend some of the resources I like at the end of this book, but it can be difficult for someone new to the field to determine what is valuable and what isn't. I have spent many thousands of hours testing this material with real women out in the field. By a process of elimination based in personal experience, I have a pretty keen sense of what works and what doesn't, and I'm often dubious when I see content from less reputable sources. Such information seems unlikely to fly in real life. Many companies offering dating advice to guys will tout this technique, or that theory, as if it were the only one that works and is superior to all others. Such claims make sense from a commercial perspective, touting an easily digestible solution, while not muddying the waters by acknowledging that other methods can work also, and in some cases may work better. My view is that it's best to be aware of as many ideas and approaches as possible so that you can apply them as necessary. After all, why limit yourself? What this book does: this book presents the 7 laws that every successful seducer on the planet observes in betting beautiful women. 1. Have your fundamentals down. 2. Believe in abundance. 3. Create opportunities. Go for what you want. 4. Talk, act, and look like a man. 5. Sexualize your interactions with women. 6. Push every interaction to the extreme. 7. Have a certifiably insane degree of self-love. Each chapter looks at a different law in detail, breaking it down and explaining how and why men who get laid on a consistent basis apply it. I then give you a real-life example from my own experience that illustrates the concepts introduced, a handy checklist of the key points, and 1 or more exercises to get you out there and practicing immediately. This book is a compendium of those things I wish I'd known when I started. Rather than having to sort through reams of frequently misleading information online, everything you will need to achieve success is presented here within one resource. Informed by cutting-edge, game, theory, but rooted entirely in my personal experience, it illustrates key tenets of seduction that I know work. Aimed at the general reader, I've kept it as free as possible from technical jargon and acronyms. What this book does not do, like every other resource available on the subject, what I don't do is claim to offer a fail-safe method to attract the women of your dreams or every single woman you meet. Rather, I set out a series of methods and techniques for you to adopt today, which, if applied properly and practiced consistently, will over time help you achieve a level of success commensurate with the degree of persistence and effort you exert. While there are simple suggestions for things to say in common situations, what I don't do is provide you with a set of pick-up lines. Remember, there is no magic bullet. The greatest line in the world might open a conversation, but it won't get you intimate with a woman. In fact, what you say doesn't actually matter that much, as we will see later. Success comes from the attitude and masculine dominance you bring to the table in your interactions. Internalizing and then acting through the 7 laws will make you the kind of strong, charismatic man who gets the kind of female attention you want. What you need to do to succeed. If you're encountering this sort of material for the first time, or even if you're an experienced PUA looking for new perspectives, what you must do first is man up and leave any preconceptions or old, socially approved ways of thinking at the door. The concepts introduced in this book are hard-hitting and practical. They are based on what works rather than what we might like to think works or what we have been conditioned to believe by feminized dating advice, commonly available in the mainstream media, things like, be a gentleman, or offer to buy her a drink. It has been said that in order to be a successful seducer you must stand outside of normal societal conventions. In simple terms, this means being your own man and not caring what other people think of you. If you're prepared to take on this mindset in all areas of your life, you will reap extraordinary benefits. You also need to think carefully about what you're looking for. Do you really want to find that one special girl to settle down with? Or would you actually be happier with a rotation of women to have sex with or enjoying a series of one-night stands? Be totally honest with yourself, and don't be ashamed of whatever you decide. If you want one-night stands, that's cool. Men are programmed to impregnate as many women as possible to maximize their chances of successfully reproducing. This is simply a biological fact, and no amount of societal disapproval or feminine shaming can get around it. Whatever you're looking to achieve, this book will give you the tools you need. Just focus on your own specific goal and funnel the material accordingly. You have to be prepared to work hard, that is, start approaching a lot of women and learn to love rejection. Understand this point, you will be rejected. It happens to everyone, and there is no way around it. Whenever rejection occurs, simply dust yourself off, learn what you can from the experience. Try to gauge what you could have done better, and then be happy. You had the nerve to put yourself on the line, and every no you hear just brings you closer to that next yes. Above everything else, you need to be ready to have your eyes open to what is possible when you get into this. I guarantee it is a lot more than you currently think, and fully accept that it is okay for you to be a player. No one else will give you permission anyway. In the end, the only person who will really allow you to be successful with women is yourself. A note about the exercises. As I've mentioned, at the end of each chapter, I set an exercise or exercises for you to complete that will get you used to putting into practice one or more of the principles that you've learned. These get progressively more challenging and so should be undertaken in the order in which they are set out, although some of them are designed to be done concurrently. As someone who has read many seduction guides and self-development books over the years, I know that the temptation is to read the chapter and then skip the tasks at the end. After all, if you understand the gist of what you've read, why bother with the hard work? In this case, though, I really would urge you to do all of the tasks and keep notes on your progress. Attracting women and seduction is a practical discipline. You can read every book under the sun on it, but unless you practice, you're never going to get better at it. The challenges I set out for you here are very simple, but they will force you to get out of the house and start interacting with many different girls. That, coupled with a firm understanding of the principles in the book, is what will really help you develop your own style and become proficient. If, as I was, you are someone who is shy and finds socializing difficult, then be gentle with yourself but firm. Put one foot in front of the other and take action. Don't judge yourself on the results you get, but on the fact that you have been courageous enough to try. You can't control the outcome, but you can control yourself. If you've never approached a woman before, or if you simply want greater variety and control in your sex life, then remember that the definition of insanity is repeating the same mistakes over and over again, but expecting a different result. Have confidence in yourself, break the pattern, and try something new. You have nothing to lose and a whole lot to gain. Law 1. Have your fundamentals down. The number one mistake guys make in terms of meeting women is also the most obvious failing to have their fundamentals down. What I call the fundamentals are the most very basic elements of your appearance and the way in which you present yourself to the world. I would love to be able to tell you that these things don't matter, And perhaps that is what you would like to hear, that how you look and dress have no bearing on your success with women, and with life in general, but the reality is that they are very important. Be realistic. If you are a badly dressed, overweight nerd with poor dress sense, then you will not be successful with women, or certainly not to any great degree, no matter what other good qualities you may have. We all have an idea of what a smooth, popular, attractive guy who gets girls looks like. Your job is to refine your vision of that guy through research, and then become him. That's not to say you couldn't luck out with a particular girl who happens to like you without doing so. And it's not to imply that these external elements are by any means the most important part of the seduction. But why wouldn't you maximize everything about yourself you can control to have the greatest choice possible? I don't want to come across as overly cynical here, but it is useful to think of attracting women as analogous to the process of making a sale, except that here you are the product. When a business owner sells something to the public, that person will ensure that it is as stylishly packaged and presented as possible to maximize the interest of potential customers. You need to do the same thing. Now, as stated, these externals, while very important, are by no means the most significant element in meeting women, but there is no doubt that looking good and being mentally and physically in shape will give you more confidence, which will improve your success rate. Even more importantly, focusing on yourself is a very valuable goal in its own right, even more important than your sex life. Please also be aware, as we get into detail in this section, that this advice is not about doing anything inauthentic. Actually, it's quite the opposite. The way you present yourself should be entirely congruent with your personality, which should shine through every aspect of your personal style. Alpha versus beta. Overall, the most important thing you have to do is look and act like a man. Much discussed in the seduction community is the idea of alpha versus beta males. See below for a couple of handy definitions. Alpha, a man tending to assume a dominant or domineering role in social or professional situations. Beta, a man who supplicates and avoids confrontation with other men and tries not to upset women. The classic nice guy. One is not necessarily better than the other. In fact, both have positive traits, but you need to ensure you veer more toward the alpha side. Throughout history, evolutionary theory shows that women are attracted to the strong, sexy dominance of alpha males. In pre-civilization, polygamy was the dominant organizing structure among humans. Alpha males would monopolize the women and keep harems, while beta males would go without sex. As agriculture was introduced and civilization matured, beta males essentially ganged up, and the system of marriage was introduced, ensuring in theory one woman for every man. But the primordial attraction for women to alphas remains constant. That is why early seduction theory famously advised against buying women drinks in bars. To buy a drink with the intention of trying to impress her or buy her time positions you as a provider, a beta figure who lacks the raw sexual dominance to attract her through other means. Don't become a cliché. You don't have to be a knuckle-dragging ape to be an alpha. It's about attitude. The true alpha does what he wants when he wants, and he doesn't supplicate to others. Cultural influences such as feel-good rom-com movies, pop songs, and so on encourage a beta attitude in men. Think of You're Beautiful by James Blunt or When I Was Your Man by Bruno Mars, or movies like Love, Actually. The problem is that the behaviors portrayed here, such as buying flowers or borderline stalking in Love Actually, can be very seductive to romantically inclined young men, but not, unfortunately, to the women they're trying to impress. Such gestures generally come off as lame and weak, and will turn girls off, at least if you make them before she's already attracted to your core alpha attributes. Much of this book is concerned with helping you develop these alpha characteristics. Bear this in mind when thinking about your fundamentals. Congruence is important. Your inner masculine attitude should shine through everything you do, how you dress, look, talk, etc. The good news is that alphaness can be easily learned and imitated. For inspiration, watch rap videos and movies and read magazines. Select alpha male idols that appeal to you and mirror them in terms of dress, posture, and so on. You don't have to go straight for the defaults, i.e. George Clooney. Be different. Choose men who are appropriate to your demographic and that you identify with. Alphane's comes in many stripes. We will discuss this in more detail later. Looks and height, do they matter? Do looks matter? Honestly, of course, they do. At the very least, they open doors. Facial good looks are a holy grail that draws the focus of female attention to a man. Height is important too. Most women like a man to be at least an inch or so taller than they are, with some favoring only those 6 feet and over, but in general attractive facial features carry more weight. The harsh truth of the matter is that if there's an exceptionally good-looking guy in your group when you go to interact with women, he'll get most of the attention. I have observed this many times, but let's face it, it's a fairly predictable phenomenon. Does this mean, then, that if you are anything less than a 6'4" stud with Ryan Gosling looks you should give up and crawl back into your cave? No. For one thing, unlike women who are judged in the sexual marketplace primarily on their appearance, men are also judged on a wide range of other attributes, such as confidence and dominance, which we'll get into later. Also, for the vast majority of men, attractiveness can be improved with simple tweaks to their presentation and through good discipline and habits. Honest self-appraisal and then maximizing your best points is the way to proceed. Hygiene. Have a shower every morning and a bath or shower at night. Clean your teeth. If you don't already have one, invest in an electric toothbrush. These suggestions are just very basic, but you need to make sure you're doing what you should be doing. Let's be real. Nothing says trailer park loser quicker than poor personal hygiene, and nothing turns a woman off faster. Stock up on drugstore shower gel and deodorants that smell pleasant and aren't too chemical. Don't worry too much about selecting expensive brands. Any masculine, non-flowery one will do, and don't be conned by high prices. It's all fundamentally the same stuff. Scent. A good aftershave won't hurt your chances with women, and in most cases will help. Many girls have an interest in scent and preferences for the latest designer brands, even for men. How to navigate the tsunami of men's fragrance advertising? Go to any big department store and talk to the female sales assistants that they'll advise you, and it's a great opportunity to practice your flirting skills. Another tip is to become familiar with what are regarded as the most classy men's designer brands. Identify those that resonate most strongly with you, and then check out their cologne offering. This is one area where you shouldn't skimp on price. Realize that choosing a Tom Ford fragrance will raise your value in a girl's eyes while splashing on some brute will lower it. Select wisely and check out the Better Men's monthly magazines and their websites for options, example, GQ, Esquire, and Details. Skincare. Leave your fear of metrosexual self-care at the door. If you don't currently moisturize, then start doing so immediately. Not only will it help improve your skin long-term, but it also provides one of the easiest ways for you to improve the way you look right now. If you're on a tight budget, then by all means pick up something like Nivea cream, but it's really worth investing a bit more money if you can. I would recommend a product called Kiehl's Face Fuel, which plumps up the skin, giving you a really healthy, wide-awake look. Kiehl's also has a really great range of other skincare products, including under-eye cream, which is fantastic for the morning after nights out, as well as anti-aging creams, etc. You can also get tinted moisturizers. L'Oreal is a good one for me. These products give your skin a healthy glow. Some people advocate sunbeds. I don't use them for health reasons, but I think it's undeniable that a tan or at least some coloring helps most guys look better. Hair. Like skin, hair is an area where with a bit of care you can make a tangible bottom-line difference to your appearance quickly and easily. Specific advice should be tailored to the individual, as what looks good on you will depend on your facial shape, what type of hair you have, and so on. But read the Better Men's mags, again, GQ, Esquire, Details, to get a sense of the sorts of cuts that appeal to you. Don't worry if they seem too out there, or not you. You should strive to expand your boundaries as much as possible in every area of your life. In common with all styles, it doesn't matter what genre you go for as long as you appear or can become congruent with it. classic and formal like David Gandy is great as is wild and messy like Harry Styles. Once you've decided on the look you want, find a decent stylist and start going to them regularly so that they can get to know your hair and take their advice. I use Toni & Guy, a very fashion-forward company, but there are many other options. My man there gave me a great piece of advice on my first consultation. Don't try to be too trendy. Observe the way your hair sits naturally without any product, and style it accordingly. A decent cut is important, but so is proper styling, so be sure to invest in a good product: wax, clay, glue, or gel, whatever works best with the look you want. A hair dryer may also be useful in adding volume and achieving something more dramatic. Shaving facial hair is currently very much in vogue. No doubt the current trend for beards will die down, but it seems unlikely that the enthusiasm for stubble will ever disappear altogether. I never like to be entirely clean shaven, it feels a bit too preppy, and stubble accentuates masculine polarity, being something that most women can't grow. If you prefer the classic chiseled, clean-shaven look, however, then, by all means, go for it. In either case, you should invest in a good quality shaving kit. I use a Remington electric with a digital display that can be adjusted to determine the length of your stubble to within a decimal place. In general, I keep the growth in the goatee area, chin, upper lip, a point longer than on the rest of my face, but you should experiment to see what works best for you. If you can't grow a full beard though, then keep your facial hair short and neat. There's nothing that turns off a woman more than straggly bum fluff on a guy. Style: if you are not interested in fashion, then you should be the way you dress is the way you present yourself to the world and is the most direct and effective way of communicating your personality to others. Nowadays, with the proliferation of cheap clothing stores, there is really no excuse not to look good. A suit from H&M costing under $100 can look great as long as it fits well, and the fit is always the most important thing to consider when purchasing clothes. A slim-fitting item that accentuates the body is best, for the most part, unless you happen to live in a region where baggy is considered cool. A great strategy is to look at what men are wearing within the social group that contains your preferred female targets, and imitate that within your budget while putting your own spin on it. Whether you're into bikers or bankers, aim to appear as though you are in the top echelon of that particular scene. Your aim should always be to stand out within the context of whatever social situation you find yourself in. So while there's probably little value in attending a royal garden party dressed as Captain Jack Sparrow, although it could be fun, you should nevertheless bend the rules as much as you can to ensure that you are the coolest person there. In practice, this almost always means details. If you're wearing a suit, how can you accessorize to look cooler? How about splashes of bright color socks, ties, pocket squares, and so on? You should always be looking to create a point of difference that makes you stand out. A good rule of thumb to follow: if you stand in front of the mirror before going out and there is nothing remarkable about your appearance for people to comment on, then you are looking too generic, and you should go back and change. Where to buy clothes? I am agnostic about designer brands, particularly so-called diffusion lines, the less expensive lines that brands like Armani put out to grow their customer base. I have both designer and high street items in my wardrobe, and perhaps inevitably I get the most compliments when I'm wearing something from a budget store like Topman. It's a literal case of the emperor's new clothes. The truth is that the vast majority of people simply can't tell whether or not what you're wearing is designer. If you choose your clothes carefully and carry yourself with confidence, chances are they'll naturally assume you've dropped a lot of money on an outfit even if you haven't. For cool, innovative detailing, though, I would recommend upper-end high-street brands like All Saints and Coupless. Their clothes are well-made and always interesting. Research is key. Go to expensive stores and boutiques, note the stock they're carrying, and then source cheaper versions elsewhere. Suits, coats, and shoes are worth investing in, but they require a more sophisticated production process than other garments, and you will want them to last longer. Check out sales and special deals. Jewelry. There used to be a concept in the seduction community, less in favor now, called peacocking, essentially dressing in a flamboyant manner to attract positive female attention and to demonstrate that you can act cool under social pressure. i.e., handle the barbs of people who don't dig flamboyance. In principle, it made sense. As stated above, your aim should always be to stand out, look dramatic, and to create conversation starting points of difference. Jewelry is a great way to achieve this, but be sparing. In moderation, rings, bracelets, and necklaces can all say something about your personality, particularly if they show that you've traveled, as with tie bracelets. Better to be too flamboyant rather than bland and dull, but remember, whatever you wear, you must have the social smarts to defend it from criticism, both female and male. Exercise. If you're not taking steps to get and stay in shape, then start today. If you are in good health, arrange a checkup with your doctor first to find out, then there is no excuse for not exercising. Not only will it improve your body, but it will also improve your mental state significantly. I try to exercise every day, anything from a full-on weight session in the gym to a run to a yoga class. Any of these activities, undertaken for a minimum of 20 minutes, is not only beneficial from a physical perspective but also operates in a similar way to a meditation session, turning off the active mind for a while. This in itself is vastly beneficial in terms of heightening one's mood. Running, one of the easiest, most convenient forms of exercise to get into. Go to a sports shop and get them to look at how you run and advise you on the best trainers to buy. Buy them. Get an iPod. Go outside your house. Run as far as you can. Turn back and run home again. Repeat the next day. If you find it hard at first, then persevere. In time, it'll become easier, and you'll be able to run for a longer time. Running is a form of cardiovascular exercise. It raises your heart rate and will help you shed weight fast. It also makes you feel great. Weight training, lifting, join a gym, or at the very least get some dumbbells for home. Most gyms will provide an induction, where they'll design an exercise program for you. Take advantage of this, or if you're working alone, then go online. There are loads of internet resources available, particularly many excellent YouTube videos. In general, you want to be doing testosterone-boosting compound exercises, squats, pull-ups, deadlifts, and bench presses several times a week. Lift the heaviest weights you can handle, and aim for 4 sets of 5 repetitions per exercise. Doing this will build body mass quickly and give you a powerful shot of testosterone that will leave you feeling like a world beater for hours afterward. Food, again, there are a great many online resources that cover this topic in detail. In general, what works for me is to maximize protein: eggs, chicken, fish, nuts, and minimize carbohydrates: bread, pasta, potatoes, etc. Cut out the 4 C's: chocolate, cheese, crisps, and cakes. Eat as many vegetables as you can. Eat fruit too, but be sparing. It contains fructose, which is basically sugar and fattening. If you drink alcohol, cut down. I don't drink at all, and I am typically thought to be between 5 and 10 years younger than my age. Money and work. It is a myth that you have to be rich to be successful with women. The seduction community has always taken great pains to discourage guys from supplicating. Example, buying drinks to impress them, and the advice is good. Buying a drink for a woman to whom you have not generated attraction is counterproductive, as she knows on some level that you are trying to buy her that you were not man enough to get her interested naturally. So don't do it. Understand that vibe is all. If a woman is into you, then she'll be happy to pick up the tab. I've dated plenty of rich girls where this has been the case. All that said, logistics are everything in a successful seduction. We go deeper into this topic in Law 6, and ready cash oils the wheels. As discussed, once the girl is interested in you, you may want to buy her drinks. In fact, doing this is entirely socially normal. You will also need money to get into clubs if that's your thing, and for transport, particularly taxis. So if you don't have a regular source of income, this is something you need to sort out, and not just for financial reasons. In Law 7, I will discuss how a man should have a purpose in life that is more important than a woman. For many, this will be their job. If you dislike your job, then pursue your passion in your spare time anyway, be it a sport, writing, acting, or cooking, and work out a way to monetize it so that you can make a living from it. Start your own business on the side. In this age of the internet, many things are possible that simply weren't a decade or so ago. Work as hard as you can to live your dreams, and women will be naturally drawn to your energy and non-neediness. Mental issues. As with work, if you have mental issues to deal with, like depression or anxiety, then sort them out before you try to sort out your love life. See your doctor. You may need a course of medication or sessions with a therapist. If you have a problem with drink or drugs, then address that too. Google AA or NA and hit a meeting. These things won't go away by themselves and will seriously impede your progress in all areas of your life. Similarly, if you are angry or bitter about women and past rejections or failed relationships, you need to deal with this too. Nothing good will come of it. Many guys start out thinking how unfair it is that women seem to hold all the power when it comes to sex. Realize that women are people and that they have problems to deal with too. Accept it and move on with your own life. You have to let these things go. It isn't healthy, and it won't get you laid. Instead of thinking about how unfair things are, take control of your destiny as a man, free to approach any women you want, and go about improving yourself so that you are better able to compete out in the field. Real life example, Becky. She was blonde, she was beautiful, and she used to come into the nightclub where I worked on the coat check every Friday night. Most of us are probably aware of that one girl in the club who outshines all others on a given night. Becky was that girl. In her high heels, silver dress, and feather boa, and with her fantastic breasts dutifully emphasized by her wonder bra, she was lusted after by everyone, from the manager to the DJ to the bouncers. I, on the other hand, was the club nerd, skinny, poorly dressed, socially awkward, and suffering from low-level depression. There was no way I was going to get with a girl like Becky. In fact, I would never have set my sights so high anyway. I would only have allowed myself to fantasize about attracting a much lower status female who I thought I might have a chance with. But one day, something started to change. I woke up and realized that I needed to sort out my life. My depression needed handling, so I handled it. Slowly, the mist of unhappiness began to lift, and I became more focused and more confident. I began taking stock of all areas of my life, including my personal style. Suddenly, I realized that I had won. I became interested in clothes and confident enough to wear things I wouldn't have dared to before in some cases. Outrageous club gear I'd never put on these days, but the lesson is that, generally speaking, more is more. I got a new haircut, started to look after my skin, and began exercising. I also became more assertive, pushing back on people who put me down, and allowing my natural sarcastic sense of humor to come to the fore. Fundamentally, I began to fall in love with myself, and I developed a "don't care what you think" attitude that expressed itself in everything I did. To my amazement, and to everyone else's around me, Becky started to pay attention, hanging around the coat check, and flirting with me. Actively pursuing me, she suggested that we go out clubbing one night. Coming back to my place afterward, we had sex for the first time. No one, particularly all those alpha males who had lusted after her, could believe that we were now together. We dated for 6 months after that, and had some great times together. There are 2 things to note here. First, I tell this particular story because at the time I met Becky, I had zero knowledge of the 7 laws, and so it demonstrates the power that simply sorting out your fundamentals can have in your relations with women. Second, I didn't make any of the personal improvements I've described in the hope of attracting Becky. She wasn't even on my radar. I did them for myself. This is absolutely key and reveals something of a paradox. A peripheral benefit of self-development is almost always that more women will become available. But you should never undertake this as your primary goal. Women will come and go. Work on yourself because you want to be the best that you deserve to be anyway. Core principles: think of meeting women as a sales process, with you as the product. Like any business owner, you must ensure that your product is of high quality and well presented. Looks help, but they're not that important. They're only one of the elements by which a man's sexual market value is judged. You should project dominant alpha characteristics through every element of your personal presentation, physique, stance, clothes, grooming, etc. Leave your fear of metrosexual self-care at the door. Sort out your personal hygiene, hair, and skin. The way you dress is the first and most direct nonverbal way in which you communicate your personality to others. Optimize your personal style accordingly. Start exercising today, both weight training and cardiovascular work. In seduction, the vibe is all. Money is not important. It helps with logistics, but that's it. Exercises. Market research. Recruit a friend, male or female, whom you can trust to be honest with you. Choose someone likely to be direct and to the point rather than someone who will try not to hurt your feelings. Bribe them with a drink, tell them that you are looking to improve yourself, and ask them to give their opinion about how you stack up in the following areas. Personal hygiene, i.e. Do you smell good? Do you have fresh breath, skin, haircut, fashion, physique, and more generally the way your personality comes across to others? Listen hard and take notes. Take action today. Do one thing today about every bit of even slightly negative feedback you receive. So, for example, if your friend says that you are a little overweight, then join a gym or invest in a pair of running shoes. Make sure you do one thing, no matter how small, before you go to bed that night, even if it's just making a phone call. Taking that first step will give you momentum and make you feel positive. For the next 30 days, make a commitment to get one of your fundamentals handled. By all means, work on the others as well, but give one the most pressing maximum attention. If it's your clothes, make an appointment with a personal shopper and buy some new items. Or if you're on a budget, look at style websites online for inspiration and source cheap versions. If you have a problem with your skin, go to a good toiletries retailer and ask their advice on the best products to use, or go to a dermatologist if you have acne or other condition. Of course, 30 days may not be enough to get down to your ideal weight, say, if you have a lot to lose. That's not important. What is important is that for 30 days you work consistently on one of your fundamentals. This is long enough for you to start to see small results, feel good, and institute a habit. At the end of the 30-day period, you won't want to stop because you will start to see what is possible. At the end of the 30 days, meet your friend again, and ask them to evaluate your progress. Once again, take note of what they say and act accordingly. If they report a marked improvement, then all good. Keep on doing what you're doing. If there's still more work to be done, think carefully about how to refine your approach, and be honest with yourself. If there's something you need to change, change it. If you're not working hard enough, work harder. Nothing comes easily in life, but working on yourself and seeing it pay off is one of the most rewarding things you can do. Law 2. Believe in abundance. One of the fundamental mistakes guys make in dealing with women, at the root of a great many problems, is a failure to believe in the principle of abundance. In the context of this book, I'm referring to abundance in women. On another level, though, you should strive to believe in abundance in all areas of your life, money and career, for example, and as you proceed further into self-development through your dealings with women, this will start to happen naturally. This chapter looks at the negative impact of living without abundance mentality, and describes what to do about it. Understand this, really grasping the concept of abundance is fundamental to success with women. When I did so, my results skyrocketed, and this will happen for you too. The opposite of abundance, onitis. The seduction community frequently discusses a condition it calls onitis. In fact, the term has become something of a meme simply because the phenomenon it refers to is so common. Onitis, put simply, is the myth of the one, the belief that one special girl is the only person in the universe who can make you complete, and that without her life will be meaningless. Often, although not exclusively, a man's onitis will be a girl he is attracted to but has not yet hooked up with for whatever reason. Perhaps she is a colleague at work that he hasn't had the courage to approach, or maybe he has approached her, and she rejected him with the infamous LJBF formula. Let's just be friends. A line women used to turn down men so frequently that it has become a trope in its own right. This is the most painful place a guy can be, in the throes of what used to be called unrequited love. That terrible, soul-destroying craving for that one special girl. If you find yourself in this position, and indeed if you've come to this book to try to get that one special girl to like you, you need to take steps to disengage from those negative feelings and forget about her. Banish from your memory all those romantic movies you've seen where the shy, nerdy but good-hearted guy winds up getting his beautiful long-term crush to go out with him at the end. Real life just isn't like that. The truth is that girls like guys categorize potential romantic and sexual partners very quickly, usually within the first few minutes of a meeting. If you are in the wrong camp, i.e., a girl's friend camp, then you will find it is very, very difficult to get out and in most cases impossible. It's far better to walk away from this girl and move on to a fresh prospect, who with the help of this book you will present yourself to differently as a potential sex partner. Later on, when the first girl has seen that you've had success elsewhere and notes your change in demeanor, then she might, and it's an outside chance, reconsider. But don't count on it. Do yourself a favor and move on. Do not under any circumstances buy into the friends frame. Women are happy to spin out these pretend friendships for months or even years, as they receive validation from them for minimal emotional investment. But the truth is that you're not truly friends. There's an imbalance. You want something more from her than she is willing to provide, and you both know it. No true friendship can exist on these terms. Don't feel you owe her anything just because she's being nice, to you on the surface at least. Life is short, and you need to put your own interests first. The frame with which you should approach your male-female interactions should be honest and straightforward. Either this leads to sex in a man-to-woman relationship, or I walk. If at this point you are thinking something along the lines of, but she's special and different, and I want to get to know her first before sleeping with her, or you think it's somehow crude to put sex first, then you need to take a reality check and realize how things really work. Sex always comes first. The relationship follows. It is not even necessary for a girl to especially like you for her to sleep with you. Attraction is all that's required. If you have come to this book hoping to convert a special girl you've asked her out once or twice, but you're getting no traction with her, then you need to rip the band-aid off and move on. Here's a 6-step guide on what to do, except that at the moment, the way things are, this girl is not into you in the way that you want her to be. Break all contact with her immediately. Stop calling her, don't answer if she calls you, defriend her on Facebook, block her on Twitter, Instagram, etc. Basically shore up all possible routes of engagement. Avoid all conversations about her with mutual friends. In fact, just cut out the mutual friends. The last thing you want right now is constant reminders of her. Stamp on any unwanted or negative thoughts about her unmercifully. Whenever a thought comes up, don't wallow, suppress it hard and move on. Have guy friends you can talk to discreetly about it, but limit these to 1 or 2 at most. The friends must be male and must be those who are going to understand and help you stick to your guns rather than talk you out of your course of action. Don't talk to anyone beyond these people about the situation, and try to limit the amount of time you spend talking to them about it. Again, don't wallow. Go out and meet other girls. The ideas that the media feeds us about boy meets girl romance are at best inaccurate, and at worst damaging. When you think about it, and it seems obvious when written in black and white, but it still needs to be said that special girl is not so special statistically. There are millions of them out there. If it's a long-term relationship you're after and it may not be, then think about it like this. In all probability, there are many women you see every day that attract you. The likelihood is that a proportion of these will have good character traits, and at least some interests that tally with yours. In theory, you could form a relationship with any of them. The truth is that men always backward rationalize physical infatuation by talking up a woman's favorable character points, attitudes, and interests, calling it love. This isn't to say that relationships never work out, or that you shouldn't enjoy the romantic feelings that come with them. It's just important to be clear about what we're really dealing with. So suddenly the notion of one special girl doesn't hold up as well. In all likelihood, your special girl is only in your life due to a series of entirely random occurrences. Some will call this fate, but actually, the special girl you pine for could just as easily be someone else. Remember, romance is at its root a biological social construct that aims to facilitate the reproduction process. Pair bonding leads to stable families in theory at least. The abundant mindset, and how to achieve it. The truly alpha guy who has experienced many women in his life does not hold on to the idea of one special girl. He realizes that there are many more out there. This is not to say that he can't choose to be in a relationship if he wants to be, simply that if he does it's because he has made a decision to be with one woman from a position of choice rather than scarcity. In this situation, the woman he's with will sense this, and their relationship will be stronger for it. Similarly, if you wish to play the field and attract many women for one-night stands or concurrent relationships, then your sense of abundance will color every aspect of your interactions. A guy approaching with an abundant mindset will be so much stronger, and therefore more attractive than a weak, needy guy looking to leech the life out of one particular girl he's obsessed with. Also, a sense of abundance allows you to take risks in terms of your approach and the way you present yourself and look uninhibited, dangerous, and exciting. On the other hand, not taking risks can mean you appear sad, inhibited, buttoned up, dry, and dull, the very opposite of sexy. So how do you achieve a sense of abundance with women? The secret is to understand, internalize, and then apply the following. You can meet and attract women absolutely anywhere you go. This realization was a major turning point for me and was responsible for a previously unimaginable uplift in my success rate. Previously, I had been blinkered by the idea that only certain times or places were appropriate for meeting women. These were at work, through family and friends, in a social setting like a private party, wedding, or other gatherings where many people know one another, bars or clubs, online dating venues where there is at least some societal expectation that men will approach women, even if on an individual level this is not always welcome. But then I discovered what is often called day game approaching in the daytime, and it immediately changed my life, opening up myriad avenues and opportunities previously closed to me. I live in London, the largest city in Europe. Every day on my way to work I see 3, 4, sometimes 5 girls I am attracted to. Every single day there is a never-ending supply of them. I was brought up in a small town with a tiny population and was indoctrinated into the boy meets girl romantic narrative. It took a while and was in a way problematic for me to discover that there is an endless supply of women out there who are attractive, my type, and potentially available. If you live somewhere like London, Moscow, or New York, think for a moment about the sheer scale of these places. You have, for all practical purposes, infinite opportunities to meet women. Meeting women every day. In reality, the range of venues where it is possible to meet and attract women is much wider than you think, including but not limited to the following: on public transport, working in a coffee bar, restaurant, shops and restaurants, in parks and libraries and bookstores, at trade events and exhibitions, at concerts and gigs, on the beach, on airplanes. The biggest eye-opener for me was realizing that, yes, it's fine to go out and talk to girls in public places in the daytime, even in the street. The first time you do it, it's like jumping off a high diving board, but if you have your fundamentals down, are well presented, and are non-threatening, then the response is almost always positive. Even if she rejects you, girls generally take being approached as a compliment. When you realize this, fully internalize it, and begin approaching women in many different scenarios, you will naturally begin to build up a sense of abundance, and will project non-neediness in each of your interactions, which will, in turn, improve your success rate. Remember that the most powerful man is the man who knows that he has options. In the next section, we go on to look at how to create myriad opportunities to meet women. Real life example. Anna, it was after 11 at night, and I was heading home. I was tired. I had been out in London with friends since early afternoon, and I'd approached a number of girls that I'd spotted in shops and coffee bars, taking one on an instant date to a cafe that had lasted an hour or more but hadn't led to any tangible result. But it was summertime, when London is fired with a strange energy brought on by the heat that lasts well into the evening. I saw her walking alone down a pedestrian street. She was about 20 years old, with long, slim legs that were more than adequately showcased by the tiny miniskirt she wore. Now, by this point in the night, a certain seduction fatigue had set in, and I debated internally whether or not I should bother approaching her. After all, as attractive as she was, the law of abundance states that there are millions of others just like her. But as I walked past, she flashed me a quick smile, a positive indicator that I simply couldn't ignore. I said hi, and we started chatting. She was a French student visiting the capital for a couple of days. She had gone to a gay club and was disappointed. The gay friends she had been with had pulled, but there had been no available guys for her. So now she was looking for something to eat before going home to bed. I said we should go and grab a bite together. There was nothing open in the immediate vicinity, so I suggested we try south of the River Thames, which was coincidentally in the direction of where I lived. She agreed, and so we walked to the center of Waterloo Bridge, which offers some of the most beautiful views of London. Here I pulled her towards me, and we kissed passionately. "Let's fuck first and eat later," she said. We walked over to the South Bank, and I hailed a cab. As we were being driven to my apartment, she said, "You're lucky. I'm wearing brand new Victoria's Secret underwear that I bought today." As soon as we reached my place, her clothes came off, and I was able to inspect the new purchase for myself before a marathon sex session that lasted well into the night. Now, granted, this story is somewhat anomalous. I had sex with Anna within 30 minutes of meeting her, which is unusual, although it happens more than you think. But it illustrates the opportunities that are out there if you believe in abundance and are willing to approach them. It also shows the changes in fortune that are open to a man. Who cares about the 9 girls you get shot down by when you're fucking the 10th? Skeptics will say that Anna made it easy for me and that not a great deal of seduction was required. The truth of the matter is that you will naturally meet girls who, for whatever reason, are up for quick sex. The trick is identifying those girls, leading, and not fucking it up. I was intuitively aware, given clues such as what she was wearing, the time of day, the location, and her smile, that she was potentially open to sex. My job as a man was to leverage masculine-feminine polarity, quickly physically escalate the kiss on the bridge, and lead her to a private location where sex could take place, my apartment. I'm not claiming it takes any kind of genius to do these things. In fact, anyone could do it, but you need a degree of confidence, knowledge of female psychology, and social poise to pull it off correctly. Fortunately, anyone can acquire these, and everything you need to know is covered in this book. Core principles. Oneitis. Unrequited lust. Love for a girl is one of the most painful places a guy can be, psychologically. You must never accept the consolation prize of friendship from a woman to whom you are attracted. A friendship is never genuine when one party wants something from the other. It's far better to cut your losses and run. The idea of that one special girl is a myth. Men backward rationalize physical attraction by extolling a woman's good qualities and calling it love. The alpha male has a mentality of abundance that makes him non-needy and non-outcome dependent with women. The key to an abundance mentality is realizing that you can meet and attract women absolutely anywhere you go. It's fine to approach and talk to women in the daytime on public transport, in coffee bars and bookstores, and even in the street. Exercises first. If you are suffering from oneitis with a girl, then follow the 6 steps outlined in this chapter. 7-day challenge. You should now be working on improving one of your fundamentals. At the same time, you should also complete the following simple challenge. Every day you should approach and say hello to 2 women in public that you don't know. A simple hi is absolutely fine. You don't need to go any further than that unless you get a good response and you find yourself in a conversation. For now, though, don't put any unnecessary pressure on yourself. Just saying hi will start to loosen you up, and you will be amazed at how many positive responses you get. Law 3. Create opportunities. Go for what you want. On some level, and especially if they have read a bit about the game and meeting women, many guys are aware that they have not been following Law 2 and that the potential pool they could be fishing from is significantly larger than the one that they are currently accessing. Law 3, therefore, is all about capitalizing on this information and going for what you want like a man. What you need to understand and internalize is this. The rom-com notion of holding out and meeting that one perfect girl is only made up to sell movies. Remember the part in Love Actually where Keira Knightley's husband's best friend, played by Andrew Lincoln, is secretly in love with her? Where he films their wedding on a camcorder and focuses on Keira for the whole thing? People may love the film, but can you imagine how creeped out any girl would be in real life? They'd most probably call the police. Such representations are basically fantasies created by film studios, partly to live up to the generic expectations of their audiences, and audiences collude with this. We all know that what we want out of movie genres is different from what we want in real life, and partly to facilitate story compression. After all, it wouldn't work to have the hero of a film chatting up 10 girls before finding one he has a connection with. The truth is, though, that this would be a more accurate reflection of real life. Letting go of these received notions about the nature of women and relationships can be painful, but it is necessary, and it will open you up to a world of previously unimaginable success. From this point on, always remember that being good with women is about creating opportunities, and it is your job as a man to do so. Adopt this new life rule now. Approach every woman you are attracted to. It sounds simple, but very, very few men do it. Were you to follow this suggestion for just 30 days, and I strongly suggest you do, you can take a guess at the exercise coming up at the end of this chapter. I guarantee that you would see results that would compel you to maintain it for a lifetime. Let's break down what it means for a moment. Every single time you see a woman that you are attracted to, be proactive. Find a way to communicate with her, and try to get her contact details for a future meeting. Even better, take her on an instant date, and progress things appropriately. If you do this consistently, and the vast majority of men don't, then do you think you will likely end up sleeping with more or fewer women than you do now? The answer is obvious. The business of meeting women. So, you've steeled yourself to approach every attractive woman you meet. How do you go about maximizing each of these interactions? It sounds anti-romantic to say so, but as I've already mentioned, the reality is that meeting women has much in common with the process of making sales for a business. What do you need to do to be an effective salesperson? Prospect, that is, identify as wide a pool of potential leads as possible. Present your product, in this case, yourself, in the best possible light. Overcome any objections. Do everything necessary to advance each prospect to a conversion. Close the deal. All of this is entirely analogous to the process of hooking up with cute girls. Paul Janka, the New York pickup artist, was famous for keeping a record of his conquests on an Excel spreadsheet. I have also used one to track prospects. This may seem a little cold-blooded, and perhaps it is, but the bottom line is that there is a sexual marketplace out there that operates in pretty much the same way as an economic marketplace, and you need to approach it with persistence and determination. First, you must make sure you have your fundamentals down, and then follow the advice in this book to ensure that the way you present yourself each time is as favorable as possible. Second, you must widen your pool of potential female conquests by going out a lot and approaching each one you find attractive. You must be able to respond effectively to any objections that she might raise. I don't go home with guys on the first night, you're not my type, you're too old, etc. And then you must do everything in your power to push each interaction forward to its logical conclusion every time. In many ways, the above answers a question that gets asked a lot about any systematic approach to meeting women, namely, is it simply a numbers game? The answer is yes and no. Yes, because by simple logic, the more women you approach, the more likely it is you will chance upon one who likes you and will be open to you. However, it is also possible to approach a vast number of women in the wrong way, without having your fundamentals down, and to achieve poor results because you are repeating the same mistakes over and over again. I was recently told about a guy who approached 1,000 women in central London without getting even a solitary kiss. Inevitably, this will be because of some flaw in his method or presentation that could most probably be corrected with some effort. That is why some form of instruction, this book, for example, is invaluable. Approaching women, the basics. There are really only two different types of approach possible: direct and indirect. Direct, You approach the girl and tell her that you find her attractive and want to get to know her. Indirect. You make some comment appropriate to the context in which you find yourself that opens a conversation with your target, which you then use as a bridge into a romantic sexual interaction. The next chapter delves into how you should approach and what you should say in detail. The point here is that you should not be afraid to use either type of approach depending on the situation. Many people are hung up on only approaching at certain times of the day, example, in clubs at night, and only approaching in a certain way, but in doing so they are failing to maximize all opportunities. Remember, take every opportunity that presents itself, progress each interaction to its logical conclusion. Of course, most men, influenced by ancient biomechanical survival instincts, find the idea of approaching an attractive woman incredibly intimidating. There's no catch-all answer to this, unfortunately, but adopting a mindset of abundance helps a lot. So what if this girl turns me down? There are millions of others just like her to choose from, as does facing up to your fear and simply approaching anyway, time and again until you are somewhat hardened and outcome independent. By now, I have probably approached and interacted with several thousand women. My anxiety around it has faded to some degree. Certainly, I am less emotionally attached to rejections. They just don't really register with me on any deep level anymore. A girl might have hundreds of reasons for turning you down that you are unaware of. Perhaps she really does have a boyfriend. Perhaps she's just upset that day and not interested in talking to anyone. Perhaps, and this is key, she doesn't think you are man enough for her. But this is not because she is objectively correct. You know you're a cool guy, it just means that some element of your presentation was off. Oh well. Rinse, correct, then repeat. Paul Janka famously wrote that as a man you are lucky because you can get turned down by one girl only to wind up getting a blow job from another in a taxi 10 minutes later. When I started, I never worried about rejection. In fact, I still don't. I merely congratulate myself on having had the kahunas to walk up and talk to the girl in the first place. Do you realize how few guys actually walk up to women cold and interact with them? Having the courage to approach at all puts you in the top 5% of the male population. So instead of worrying about some girl who doesn't even know you turning you down, just enjoy the process of meeting people you wouldn't otherwise have met, and realize that every approach you make toughens you up and gives you useful feedback that you can use to amend your technique the next time. Learn to love rejection as part of the process of meeting more women. Similarly, never be afraid to progress each interaction as far as you can. The issue here is that once a guy has begun talking with a girl and it's going well, there can be a tendency for him not to want to push things forward for fear of spoiling the good vibe that has already been created. Whatever you do, do not fall into this trap. Understand that a good vibe in itself is worthless. Your goal is not to have nice, safe conversations with women but to have sex with them. You are responsible for taking the lead in each and every interaction and moving it forward. She isn't going to do it for you in most cases then anyway. A man who takes action is more sexually attractive to a woman than a passive guy who waits for her to make all the moves. Take the pressure off yourself. Lower the bar as stated. The next chapter explains in greater detail how you should approach and precisely what to say. Of course, you should read and digest this information carefully, and try to apply it. You may also want to watch online videos and consult other resources while considering the best openers to use, the best body language, and so on. But remember, as with any activity, the theory will take you only so far. When you're actually out interacting with real-life women, so many variables will come into play that you will find it hard to keep in mind everything you've learned, and developing the razor-sharp reactions that a truly polished seducer would aspire to can take a lifetime. Here, as with most endeavors, the danger is to compare yourself to others or to an imaginary idea of how you should be and to always come up short. The good news, which is one of the key messages of this book, is that this is entirely unnecessary. You don't have to be a master seducer to enjoy great success with women. All you need is to be good enough in the context of each interaction. The British writer G.K. Chesterton famously said, "If a thing is worth doing, it is worth doing badly." Such is the case with meeting women. Don't expect everything to go smoothly. There really is no such thing as a perfect pickup, and anyway, it is unnecessary. A lame approach is always better than no approach at all because you simply can't predict how a girl is going to react until you've broken the ice and talked to her. I'm not saying that you shouldn't optimize every opportunity. You most certainly should, as stated above. This isn't entirely a numbers game. But at the same time, the most important thing is that you create an opportunity rather than not. Remember, do whatever you can in the moment. I have gotten lazy through the lamest approaches and been blown out after the smoothest. In the end, no matter what pickup companies keen to sell products may tell you, there really is number 100% guarantee of what is going to work. How can there be, when you are dealing with an infinite number of personality types in an infinite variety of situations? What it all comes down to, more than technique, is the confident dominant vibe you give off. And that can only be achieved by trying those techniques that have worked for other people and loads of practice. The types of women you will meet. Broadly speaking, you will meet 3 different types of women. They can be categorized as follows: definite, no, girls definite, yes, girls, maybe, girls, some girls definite, no, girls will not be attracted to you whatever you do. Perhaps you are simply not her preferred type, or perhaps she is in a relationship that precludes her from seeing anyone else, even though she might be tempted. Definite, yes, girls are the opposite. These are girls who like you right off the bat almost regardless of how you approach and what you say. Just as you will feel a stronger pull to certain girls over others, the definite, yes, are for whatever reason naturally predisposed to liking you. Maybe, girls are in between. Perhaps you are interesting to them and they would not rule you out immediately, but they require work to convert. Fortunately, it has been estimated that these groups each make up around a third of the overall universe of women you are likely to approach, which means that 2/3, a majority, will be at least potentially receptive. Your task is to weed out the definite, no, girls as quickly as possible, and not waste your time with them. Our focus here is finding and not messing up with definite, yes, girls and successfully converting maybe girls. The 2 seduction models. Broadly, there are only 2 seduction models: a 1-tier model, where you meet and sleep with the woman on the same day or night, a first night lay, which could then lead to a relationship if you wish, and a 2-tier model, where you meet her, get her contact details, and arrange a date for another day before moving things on to a sexual level. Which model you are working toward depends on 2 factors. One, what you want. So if you are looking for a one-night stand, it makes sense for you to hunt in locations more geared to such interactions, i.e. bars and clubs, and 2, how far her logistics and personality type will allow her to go in that scenario. The point is that you need to determine in your mind which model applies to the interaction you're in, and then do whatever you need to do to push that interaction to its logical conclusion in the moment. So if it's going to be a 2-tier seduction, say, you meet her in the morning or in a cafe or whatever, you can't get physical there and then. Your job is simply to establish a line of contact between the 2 of you by whatever means possible. The most obvious way of doing this is by getting her phone number or Facebook details or email address. All can work. The way you do this is simple. After you've chatted for a few minutes, say, "Look, I've got to get going now, but it's been great talking to you. Put your number in here, hand her your phone, and I'll call you." That's all you need to do, and it's so simple. Once she has given you the number, you have established a line of contact. Essentially, you've reached the next level of the game, so now you can contact her at your leisure and use the text game on her before organizing a meetup. Of course, she may refuse to divulge her number or say she has a boyfriend or whatever. We'll get more into handling objections in the next chapter, but if you are approaching and pushing forward often enough, you should be picking up a good collection of numbers each week. Remember abundance theory. The point is not to get hung up on individual girls but to implement number farming as a regular habit in your life. Do whatever you can in the moment. Here's the really important thing. Always be prepared to lower the bar. Say you establish eye contact with a girl, or even if you don't, and for whatever reason you can't approach her, perhaps you're with your boss or in some other formal situation, then, by all means, write your number down and slip it to her or have someone else do so. There are plenty of willing matchmakers out there. Look, I'm not saying this will always work and that she will call you. In most cases, she won't, as girls are conditioned to expect guys to make the first move, and you probably won't have displayed enough of your personality to get her interested yet, but, on the other hand, she might. There have been many occasions when I've used this technique and ended up getting the girl. Leave your ego at the door. Don't be afraid to use what might seem to you a lame pickup technique, or a cop-out. The job is simply to establish a line of contact. If you walk away without giving her your contact details, the very likely outcome is that you will never see her again, particularly in a big city like New York or London. So you may as well try something rather than nothing. Remember, always do whatever you can to move the interaction on in the moment. If, on the other hand, you are in a one-tier seduction model, then it is your job to get the woman to a private location, your home, her home, or if you like that sort of thing, the club bathroom, and fuck her. The way to do this is also simple. When you are out at a bar or a club and are enjoying decent rapport with a girl, you must at some point in the evening make the decision to stick with this one girl, and then do so, no matter what. Push through and take the interaction as far as you can. Ask her to come with you for food after the club, and then put her in a cab and take her around to your place to watch a movie. Or if she has to go home, say you'll share a cab with her, even if you live on the other side of town and don't know her area at all. A famous piece of wisdom from the pickup artist Mystery Made Famous in the Game is that it takes 7 hours on average for a woman to get comfortable enough with a guy to sleep with him. Now, I know from personal experience that this is not always the case. You can easily sleep with a woman within minutes of meeting her, but still, the principle holds good. In general, the longer she is exposed to your personality, the more attracted she will be to you. Use this to your advantage, and just hang in there, no matter what, even if the conversation dries up for a while or you have nothing to say. Just style it out. Merely remaining in her presence will build rapport and make it more likely she'll sleep with you. Maximizing. Remember, it is your job as a man to lead each interaction with a woman and to push it forward as far as possible. Never fall into the trap of feeling bitter about this. Instead, revel in how fortunate you are to be a guy and to have autonomy. It may be true that women are the gatekeepers to sex, that they get to choose whether or not they sleep with a particular guy, but men get to choose whom they approach, which is arguably even better. Bear in mind also that in the vast majority of cases you will regret it more if you fail to approach a woman at all than if you get turned down by her. Learn that rejection is just part of the process. You can't control other people's reactions. All you can do is take the right action, create an opportunity, lead, and let the outcome take care of itself. It's always preferable to have taken the shot rather than not. I have ended up sleeping with and dating so many girls that would never have even looked at me had I not created the opportunity. One final point: never take dating advice from women. They rarely know what they themselves are attracted to, and even when they do, they often aren't able to articulate it particularly well. It is always better to take advice from other men, or better still to simply model their behavior. Real life example: Lilia. I was on the Underground in London, returning home when I first saw Lilia, a young, goth girl with black hair and pale skin, wearing long studded boots, spiky silver rings, a miniskirt, and ripped fishnet tights. Feeling slightly self-conscious in my suit, having just left work, I nevertheless registered immediately that here was one of those girls who, for whatever reason, tugged strongly on my DNA. I had to have her, but the carriage was full of silent commuters, and a direct opener would generate a degree of social pressure from the onlookers that might lose me the girl. Casting around for a reason to talk to her, I noticed that she was carrying an unusual bag in the shape of a doll that was dressed remarkably like its owner. Unable to think of anything else, I decided to go with what seemed like the lamest opening line I could utter. "Nice bag." "Thanks," she said in her thick Muscovite accent. "You don't sound English. You're Russian, right?" "Sure." I ignored the glances of the other passengers around us, and we chatted. It turned out that she was on a short break in London for 4 days, visiting a friend, having just split up with her boyfriend. She was currently traveling to Camden to meet up with some guy she had met at a club the previous night. What a coincidence. It just so happened I was heading for Camden myself. When we got out onto the platform, I suggested we go for a drink. She agreed. After a couple of vodkas in Camden, I mentioned a pub in Soho, which, with its rock and roll interior, I thought she might like. Over a drink there, I suggested we go back to her hotel room for one-off, anonymous sex, after which we would never see one another again. She was hooked. We finished our drinks and took a cab over to Victoria, where she was staying. Less than 4 hours after we had met, we were having sex in her hotel room. I tell this story not to brag about how proficient I am at meeting girls, but more to demonstrate the principles laid out in the chapter in action. First, I saw something I wanted the girl and went for it by creating an opportunity. She hadn't so much as looked at me before I spoke to her, so I had to risk public embarrassment in initiating a conversation. Second, my opening line, "Nice bag," was nothing special. In fact, many would probably regard it as substandard. That doesn't matter. It was all I could think of at the moment, so I went with it. Third, I did everything I could to move the interaction forward. I had never really intended to travel anywhere near Camden. I took the risk of going out of my way so that I could spend more time with the girl and pushing the interaction forward. You should always be prepared to hang in there if it looks like things are going well, and, after all, I had no other plans that night. What would the point have been of taking her number, and then going home alone to watch TV? Remember, you will always regret the chances you didn't take more than the chances you did. I recall a similar situation where I met an Italian girl at a bus stop, took her for a drink in our local neighborhood. We lived close to one another, and made out with her before telling her I had to be up early the next morning. I did, taking her number, and going home alone. Needless to say, I never saw that girl again. Looking back, I'm certain that, had I hung in there, there's a good chance I could have gone back to her place for sex that night. What a wasted opportunity. Core principles. From now on, approach every woman you are attracted to. Getting good with women is about creating opportunities. It is your job as a man to do so. It sounds anti-romantic, but meeting women is analogous to the sales process. You must prospect for leads, present your product yourself well, overcome objections, and close the deal. Meeting women is a numbers game to an extent, but not entirely. Yes, you will need to approach a lot of women, but you need to learn and refine your technique, or else keep repeating the same mistakes over and over. There are two types of approach: direct, where you let her know you're attracted to her up front, or indirect, where you go in, under the radar. Take every opportunity that presents itself to you. Be proud of yourself simply for approaching no matter what the outcome. You're one of the top 5% of guys who have the nerve. Push it. A good vibe with a new girl is worthless. Your aim is to fuck her. Don't give yourself a hard time with the perfect approach. Lower the bar, and do what you can at the moment. There are two seduction models. 1 tier, where you sleep with her that same day or night, and 2 tier, where you arrange a date or a series of dates to take place in the future. Determine which model you're in, and push either for sex or contact details to arrange a second meeting. Never take dating advice from women. Exercises 7-day challenge. This week, instead of just saying hi, you have to stop and have a brief conversation with at least one girl a day whom you are attracted to. It doesn't need to be extensive, and don't worry too much at this stage about trying to pull. Simply go up and either pay a compliment or ask for directions to somewhere, like the nearest Starbucks. Once you have opened, get used to bridging into other topics by making a statement of some kind that encourages her to open up to you a little. For example, "You look like you're ready for a fun day at work," or something similar. Anything relatively light-hearted will push the conversation on. See how long you can chat. The longer the better, of course, but don't put any pressure on yourself. If her interest seems to wane or if you run out of things to say, simply tell her to have a nice day and walk off. If, however, you are getting some positive signals, i.e., extended eye contact, any form of touch, or if she simply seems keen to continue talking longer, either ask for her cell phone number, or, better still, suggest the two of you go for a quick coffee somewhere to continue talking. You'll be amazed at how many times the girl will say yes. If you can, depending on the circumstances you find yourself in, push the interaction all the way through to sex, then, by all means do so. If this is not possible, then take her phone number and arrange to meet up again soon. Law 4. Talk, act, and look like a man. Men who do not observe Law 4 have either simply failed to find out what works best with women or else know and fail to implement it consistently. When it comes down to it, all approaching and all wider relations with women are about retaining your integrity as a man. That's it. It may sound simple, but this integrity should be manifest in every element of your presentation. How you dress, your stance, the tone of your voice, what you say, and your text messages, everything. Understand that women are programmed to select the most high-value males they can to reproduce with, and so they will constantly test you to ensure you fit the bill. For the most part, presenting your masculine self unapologetically and emphatically will make the difference between a successful approach and a blowout. Too many guys approach girls if they do it at all in a weak and wishy-washy manner. Cut that out right now. To be successful, you really need to go in there and own each interaction like a man. How soon to approach? There used to be something called the 3-second rule that was very popular in the seduction community. Basically, the idea was that you would allow yourself no more than 3 seconds to go and talk to any girl that you liked, as waiting any longer would give you more time to become nervous and bail out. The danger with this, of course, is that guys risk looking socially awkward by storming up to women indiscriminately. Women like to feel special, and that they have been selected for a reason. The danger with immediate approaches is that they give the lie to this impression. That said, walking right up to a girl off the bat does communicate masculine confidence, and that you are a guy who goes for what he wants, and these qualities are absolutely key to attracting women. So don't tether yourself to a hard and fast timing rule, but at the same time approach and do the business as quickly as you can. You should keep a target in mind for how many women a day you will approach. It needn't be a high number, say 10 in a night out at a club or 1 a day on your way to work. It doesn't matter as long as you have it in mind and stick to it. Ideally, though, you should be racking up the numbers and getting as much experience of talking to women under your belt as possible, as well as many new contacts on your cell phone. As stated earlier, though, this isn't just a numbers game. It is also vital that you ensure the quality of your approaches is high so that you maximize your chances with each girl and every girl. So how do you accomplish this? Masculine-feminine polarity. What approaching and indeed all aspects of male-female relations come down to is leveraging the polarity between the masculine and the feminine. This is absolutely fundamental. The masculine and the feminine are different polar opposites. Fail to acknowledge that polarity at your peril. It's funny that the most common worry guys have when thinking about interacting with women is wondering what they should say. If you have your fundamentals down, and you can create sexual tension by leveraging full masculine polarity, then the specific words you utter become secondary, unimportant even. So how do you communicate that polarity? Above all, you must be 100% unapologetic. Your attitude should be straightforward, determined, slightly aloof, and gently persistent. It is strange how as boys mature into men they come to view attractive women with a kind of fear, when as kids on the playground they would chase them around and pull their hair. In part, this is because of the perceived power that attractive women have as sexual selectors and the constant goddess-like status their bodies are awarded in the media through advertising and cultural conditioning. What you need to do is disregard all of this background noise and walk up with entitlement. A light air of amused arrogance should be your default. Your approach should communicate the following: I am the man, I'm special, and I'm screening you to see if you deserve my attention or not. Fake it till you make it. Now this, of course, is easier said than done, especially if you are not particularly self-confident and haven't been through years of social conditioning. Don't worry. It's hard for many of us at first, particularly in a climate that encourages self-effacement and permission-seeking. The trick is simply to pretend. Fake it till you make it. What does this mean in practice? Walk up to the girl pretending you think you are the prize, pretending you think you are entitled, pretending you are screening her, even if in reality you think that she is too good for you. Squash any feelings of inferiority hard. They are entirely unhelpful and also untrue. Objectively, you are both just human beings, and no one person is better than the other. Try this for a while. Trust me, you will be surprised how quickly you start to fall into character, and the new behavior becomes natural to you. Faking it to make it and assuming a cocky but amusing and amused air of superiority was one of the fundamental factors that skyrocketed my success. Your approach creates attraction in itself. This is a secret that very few people, only those who cold approach regularly, know. Your approach in itself creates attraction in a woman. Earlier we discussed the issue of looks and height, and their importance in meeting and attracting women. But in a way, the whole looks argument is a red herring. Yes, of course, they help, and you need to have your fundamentals down. But if you approach like a man, with confidence, then this in itself greatly boosts your perceived attractiveness. Put it this way, had my photograph been shown with those of several other men to many of the girls I've fucked or dated prior to our meeting, I'm fairly certain that they wouldn't have picked me out as being especially hot or great looking, but it's irrelevant. They became attracted to me because of my approach and the nature of our interaction. Yes, female mating decisions may be made within seconds, but they are not based solely on physical criteria. This is why you should never wait for an indication of interest from a girl before approaching her. I've pulled girls who didn't so much as a glance in my direction before I started talking to them, and you should always take every opportunity that presents itself to you. Specifics. Posture. Your aim should always be to appear dominant and decisive. Don't walk too fast, don't slouch your shoulders, keep your hands by your sides, and do not cross your arms in front of you. Don't touch your face while you are talking. It betrays nervousness. Stance. If possible, depending on the situation in which you meet her, stand straight in front of her so that you are looking at her square on. Remember, you are the man, you are the boss, and she is not. The key is to be entirely non-reactive. Whatever she says or does doesn't matter. If she is rude or tries to diss you, then by all means think of a clever retort if you can, but don't sound offended. The best way to deal with any kind of test is often simply to maintain eye contact, look cocky and unresponsive, and let her talk herself out. Never appear that you are upset by anything she says. Eye contact. This is absolutely key to a successful seduction. Keep direct eye contact with her at all times during the interaction. Cool, calm, not invasive or weird, but slightly cocky, as though you're assessing her worth. Think about having sex with her as you look at her. Maintaining this kind of eye contact is incredibly powerful, and actually does most of the heavy lifting of the pickup for you. Most men are not able to hold direct eye contact that communicates that it's on for any length of time. Train yourself to do it, and you will immediately set yourself apart from the crowd, and she will start to get turned on, giggle, and get nervous. Without any need for physical touch, eye contact is an incredibly dominant, masculine behavior that communicates what you want efficiently, and is very sexy when done right. Talking. Guys are often overly concerned with what to say. Understand that there is no magic pickup line that will get you girls. It just doesn't work like that. At best, your opener may make the girl laugh, but that means very little. You still have to hook her in by revealing your personality, while maintaining a dominant masculine frame. The best way to do this is to talk, a lot, about anything that comes into your head until something sticks. What to say can be divided into two areas: the opener, or whatever you use to initiate the conversation, and then the main body of the conversation. The way I picture it is that the opener is a little like diving off a high board. When you hit the water, you are submerged for a moment before you acclimatize yourself, rise to the surface, and develop a rhythm. Similarly, when a conversation with a girl hooks, you have found that rhythm, and now you're swimming along safely. The trick is to handle the transition between opener and dialogue as well as you can. Realize though, that smoothness is something of a myth. You're not James Bond, and more to the point, either are the natural guys you see chatting up girls in bars and nightclubs. Before I began practicing these techniques, I used to have no idea what to talk to girls about. But when you think about it, do you really imagine that all those other guys are engaging in carefully crafted dialogue with their girls? Of course not. In reality, they're just making small talk like everyone else. What you have to do is to allow yourself to open up to the point where you can talk freely and flowingly about whatever comes to mind. Sure, some conversational gambits may bomb, but it doesn't matter. Just keep going until something sticks and be unreactive to any negativity from her, real or perceived. Openers. The following are examples of simple openers that you might use to start a conversation with a girl in a public place during the daytime. They are all very simple. Remember, the only function of an opener is to establish contact and start a conversation with a stranger. That's it. Direct. Hey, I just saw you, and I think you're incredibly cute, and I just had to come and meet you. Hey, you're adorable. I'm Troy. What's your name? Indirect in the street. Is there a Starbucks near here? At a train station. Does this train go to London Bridge? In an art gallery. Don't you just love Picasso's blue period? In a supermarket. Excuse me, where's the pasta aisle? Direct and indirect approaches both have their fans and detractors. Broadly speaking, the advantage of direct is that you are communicating your real feelings up front, which is attractive, and which also reduces wasting time. You can get a sense of whether or not she likes you within a few seconds. If she doesn't, then there is nothing lost. Simply move on. The first time you approach a girl with a direct opener is really like jumping off a high diving board, and for many guys, it is entirely outside of their reality. It certainly was for me, but there is also great power in such an approach. I recall my first attempt well. I steeled myself and then went up to a woman in a drugstore in a busy London rail station and simply said, "Hi, you're beautiful." I really was prepared for the matrix to glitch and for the world to dissolve around me, but in fact her face cracked with pleasure. With a wide grin on her face, she thanked me and told me how flattered she was. I didn't pull on that occasion, but it didn't matter. The experience revealed to me just how simple, straightforward, and possible cold direct approaching can be for you. Indirect is good, as it can get you in under the radar, without the high risk and high blowout potential of direct. Some find it easier, as it can feel less intimidating to approach with a seemingly innocent question. Bear in mind, though, that girls aren't stupid and generally know that you're hitting on them. Also, you lose the peripheral attraction that can be generated by the direct approach. Others argue that, used properly, indirect allows you to establish more of a meaningful connection with the girl over and above just saying you fancy her, which makes it more likely she will see you again. My view is that you should use both direct whenever you can on balance. It is my preferred method, and indirect when direct would be inappropriate for whatever reason, if, say, the attendant social pressure feels too great and you lose your nerve. Remember, any approach is better than none, and your primary job is to create opportunities with as many girls as possible by establishing connections. You never know where they might lead. Bridging. Once you have delivered your opener, if the girl is still standing in front of you, then you need to create a bridge into a more normal conversation. Don't ask her a question, though. By far the most effective way of doing this is to make a statement of some kind, usually an observation about her that allows her to expand on whatever you have said. A simple, if rather banal, example is to say something like, "I see you've been checking out the sales." If she's laden down with shopping bags, which would allow her to expand on where she's been, what she's bought, and so on. Ideally, though, you should try to think of a more idiosyncratic observation that is somehow specific to her. This is desirable for two reasons. First, because it will be unusual, and so it will set you apart from other guys, and second, because it will provide a ready answer to a question that girls often ask. Why, out of all of the girls you might have approached, did you choose me? Of course, it might well be that you have approached 10 other girls before her that morning, but you still need to be able to answer this, or at the very least have in mind something specific about her that attracts you over and above a simple, "You're hot." Ideally, your observation should be non-cheesy and on point, something along the lines of the following. "You have this energetic spring in your step when you walk. You must have trained as a ballet dancer?" Or, "You've got this kind of old style, 50s look, And the way you have your hair looks like Audrey Hepburn in Roman Holiday. You must be into old movies. Talking about her appearance in a daytime context is tricky. You want to avoid being too sexual too early so as not to freak her out. But at the same time, anything too fashion-based will put you firmly in gay best friend territory. The way to avoid the latter is to always maintain strong, masculine eye contact while you're talking so that she's clear on the subtext of the conversation. Once you've made a statement of this kind, stop talking and allow her to respond. Most likely she will come back with some kind of self-deprecating agreement or denial. You can then follow up with one of the most effective lines that I have found to work in this situation. You seem like the kind of woman girl who... There's something magical about this statement. Girls' eyes light up before you're halfway through it. The reason is that women love to find out things about themselves, and they are particularly interested in how they come across to others. This accounts for the popularity of horoscopes, personality tests, and magazines like Psychologies. You should therefore follow up the first half of the statement with some kind of insight into her personality. Of course, this will be guesswork, but it will be an educated guess based on some aspect of her look or style. So, for example, if she was walking very quickly, you might say something like, "You seem like the kind of woman who is determined to the point of ruthlessness in going for what she wants during the day but likes to curl up and be pampered like a kitten when she gets home." Direct. "Hey, I just saw you, and I think you're incredibly cute, and I just had to come and meet you." "Hey, you're adorable. I'm Troy. What's your name?" Indirect in the street. "Is there a Starbucks near here?" At a train station. "Does this train go to London Bridge?" In an art gallery. "Don't you just love Picasso's Blue Period?" In a supermarket. "Excuse me, where's the pasta aisle?" Direct and indirect approaches both have their fans and detractors. Broadly speaking, the advantage of direct is that you are communicating your real feelings up front, which is attractive, and which also reduces wasting time. You can get a sense of whether or not she likes you within a few seconds. If she doesn't, then there is nothing lost. Simply move on. The first time you approach a girl with a direct opener is really like jumping off a high diving board, and for many guys, it is entirely outside of their reality. It certainly was for me, but there is also great power in such an approach. I recall my first attempt well. I steeled myself and then went up to a woman in a drugstore in a busy London rail station and simply said, "Hi, you're beautiful." I really was prepared for the matrix to glitch and for the world to dissolve around me, but in fact her face cracked with pleasure. With a wide grin on her face, she thanked me and told me how flattered she was. I didn't pull on that occasion, but it didn't matter. The experience revealed to me just how simple, straightforward, and possible cold direct approaching can be for you. Indirect is good, as it can get you in under the radar, without the high risk and high blowout potential of direct. Some find it easier, as it can feel less intimidating to approach with a seemingly innocent question. Bear in mind, though, that girls aren't stupid and generally know that you're hitting on them. Also, you lose the peripheral attraction that can be generated by the direct approach. Others argue that, used properly, indirect allows you to establish more of a meaningful connection with the girl over and above just saying you fancy her, which makes it more likely she will see you again. My view is that you should use both direct whenever you can on balance. It is my preferred method, and indirect when direct would be inappropriate for whatever reason, if, say, the attendant social pressure feels too great and you lose your nerve. Remember, any approach is better than none, and your primary job is to create opportunities with as many girls as possible by establishing connections. You never know where they might lead. Bridging. Once you have delivered your opener, if the girl is still standing in front of you, then you need to create a bridge into a more normal conversation. Don't ask her a question, though. By far the most effective way of doing this is to make a statement of some kind, usually an observation about her that allows her to expand on whatever you have said. A simple, if rather banal, example is to say something like, "I see you've been checking out the sales." If she's laden down with shopping bags, which would allow her to expand on where she's been, what she's bought, and so on. Ideally, though, you should try to think of a more idiosyncratic observation that is somehow specific to her. This is desirable for two reasons. First, because it will be unusual, and so it will set you apart from other guys, and second, because it will provide a ready answer to a question that girls often ask. Why, out of all of the girls you might have approached, did you choose me? Of course, it might well be that you have approached 10 other girls before her that morning, but you still need to be able to answer this, or at the very least have in mind something specific about her that attracts you over and above a simple, "You're hot." Ideally, your observation should be non-cheesy and on point, something along the lines of the following. You have this energetic spring in your step when you walk. You must have trained as a ballet dancer? Or, you've got this kind of old style, 50s look, and the way you have your hair looks like Audrey Hepburn in Roman Holiday. You must be into old movies. Talking about her appearance in a daytime context is tricky. You want to avoid being too sexual too early so as not to freak her out, but at the same time, anything too fashion-based will put you firmly in gay best friend territory. The way to avoid the latter is to always maintain strong, masculine eye contact while you're talking so that she's clear on the subtext of the conversation. Once you've made a statement of this kind, stop talking and allow her to respond. Most likely she will come back with some kind of self-deprecating agreement or denial. You can then follow up with one of the most effective lines that I have found to work in this situation. You seem like the kind of woman girl who... There's something magical about this statement. Girls' eyes light up before you're halfway through it. The reason is that women love to find out things about themselves, and they are particularly interested in how they come across to others. This accounts for the popularity of horoscopes, personality tests, and magazines like Psychologies. You should therefore follow up the first half of the statement with some kind of insight into her personality. Of course, this will be guesswork, but it will be an educated guess based on some aspect of her look or style. So, for example, if she was walking very quickly, you might say something like, "You seem like the kind of woman who is determined to the point of ruthlessness in going for what she wants during the day but likes to curl up and be pampered like a kitten when she gets home." Never say anything negative, not in these early stages of the interaction anyway. If you deliver the line above, for example, you should smile cheekily at the word, ruthlessness, to show that you're teasing rather than being judgmental. Remember, your tone should always be humorous, bantering, and lightly teasing. Never be too heavy or serious. And remember also that the point of these openers is only to get a conversation going, so don't stress too much over what you say. It doesn't really matter very much, and I can guarantee that down the line she won't remember anyway. After you've made a statement such as one of those above, the likelihood is she will come back and either agree or refute it in some way. Congratulations. You are now having a conversation. You should now start to feel more comfortable and begin to talk normally. The key point here is to assume intimacy. Don't in any way acknowledge that this is an unusual situation. Instead, behave as though you already know one another. Don't worry if this feels like a stretch. Do it anyway. Conversation. The early part of the conversation should consist of talking and perhaps telling stories about yourself or things you've experienced. These should never be boastful. The last thing you want to do is to look as though you are trying to impress, as this comes across as needy and is unattractive. But at the same time, you should aim to look like a cool, interesting guy. Don't complain or bitch or whine about anything. Maintain a positive vibe, but also don't act overly impressed with what she says either. After a couple of minutes, it's cool to drop in a few questions to get her to open up about herself and to provide you with more material to work with. But you have to have provided some value first. After all, you don't want to sound like an interviewer, and why should she answer a barrage of questions from someone she's only just met? In general, once you get into a regular conversation with a girl, it's helpful to think of it like a website's marketing strategy. Just keep putting the content out there until something generates high traffic, or in this case a positive response. Basically, just keep talking about whatever you want to until something hits. Of course, this begs the question, where do you source your conversational material from? The real answer to the question, what should I say? is that you already know what to say. If you're reading this book, it's safe to say that you have over a decade's worth of unique experiences, thoughts, and impressions to communicate already. The problem that all of us encounter is that when meeting new people we become stifled, and conversation simply doesn't come to us as readily as it would otherwise. Think of how you would behave with a group of friends when you're completely relaxed and in the zone. The conversation just flows from you, right? You don't need primers to tell you what to talk about or spend loads of time thinking about which topics will impress. You just talk about whatever it is you want to talk about, and if it bombs, then you don't stress and just open another thread. This is exactly how you need to be when you're talking to that hot girl. As with most things, fake it till you make it is also the mindset to go with her. Walk up pretending that you are the kind of guy who just flows when he talks to women, and it's far more likely that you will be. And of course, as with everything, practice really helps. It also makes a lot of sense to do anything else you can to sharpen your verbal and mental acuity. There are various ways you can go about this. The first thing is to make sure that you read a lot, and not just blog posts and social feeds but actual books. Literature and general fiction will help keep your vocabulary sharp, and titles on psychology, social sciences, and even economics will provide you with lots of material to talk about. Also, watch comedians, listen to rap music, and attend poetry slams. Exposing yourself to any art form where verbal dexterity is a prerequisite will benefit you. And remember that you have a whole lifetime's worth of material in your head. Trust in that and let go. Have confidence that you will be able to carry the conversation. Finally, the most important thing to remember is this: it's okay to lower the bar. Don't walk around terrified to speak because you haven't thought of the most amazing opener. Here's the truth: relatively few men or women are brilliant conversationalists, and they don't need to be. All you need to be is averagely articulate and lead, but we'll get more into this in the next section on sexualizing the interaction. In the end, the best way to get good is to approach as many girls as you can. The most useful challenge you can set yourself, and one that I've undertaken many times, is to approach 100 girls in a month and log their reactions. If you wish, record some of these interactions so that you can see where you could have done better. Consistently putting yourself on the line like this not only forces you to generate interesting material to talk about, but it also quickly teaches you what works and what doesn't, and will help you to develop your own working script, a backbone for future interaction that can be amended as required whenever you meet a new girl. Social pressure. No, getting around this in the UK and the US, as well as in much of Europe and the rest of the world, men are nervous about approaching women directly in public, and as such when you do, it feels like all eyes are on you. The truth, of course, is that men and women get together every day, so approaches in one form or another really aren't actually unusual. But most people don't want to be rejected in front of their peers. The mindset you need to adopt to combat this is simple. What does it matter? After all, in a metropolitan area like London or Manhattan, the chances of ever again seeing any of those people in the bookstore or on the subway are minimal. Also, the fear of approaching in front of others is underpinned by an assumption that they will view your proactivity negatively, and this is not necessarily the case. The first thing to remember is that no one really cares about you anyway. They don't care whether you get the girl or not. Most are too wrapped up in their own lives. Some will be impressed that you had the nerve to make a move, others may think it's inappropriate. So what? Understand, there is no such thing as consensus. Even close-knit groups, such as families, friends, or work colleagues who ostensibly hold the same views and beliefs, are all individuals. In truth, each person is probably thinking something entirely different from others in his group, even if he wouldn't openly admit it. What may well transpire is that more than one is secretly really impressed by what you've done. The point I'm making is that you should never go out into the world thinking that there is you, and then there is society, this gray, faceless mass of people who all think identically and will all view your actions and judge them in the same way. It simply isn't like that. Remember, he who hesitates masturbates. Go after what you want unapologetically, and know that you are doing what 95% of other men wish they could do, so even if you fail, you've actually succeeded. And don't worry about what others may or may not think. As long as you're acting in alignment with your own goals and standards, you have no one else to please but yourself. Fear of rejection. Recognize that everyone experiences this, and it is entirely normal. At the same time, also recognize that it is based on ancient fears dating all the way back to prehistoric times, where rejection from a female meant ostracization from the tribe and even death. In today's world, the worst outcome you are likely to suffer is a little mild embarrassment. In the vast majority of cases, as long as you have your fundamentals down and are presentable and non-threatening when you approach a girl, only one of two things will happen. She will be flattered, show interest, and engage in a conversation that it is your job to advance. She will say, "Thanks, but I'm not interested," or "Thanks, but I have a boyfriend," or some variation of that. In general, girls like being approached even if they are not into you, particularly in the daytime when it rarely happens. It's flattering to them and a welcome ego boost. Only on a very few occasions does anything worse happen, and really, what can she do other than give you a dirty look and walk off or tell you to get lost? If either of these things does happen, don't worry. You have done nothing wrong. After all, approaching a woman that you are attracted to is a fundamental masculine instinct, and one you should never be ashamed of. If she doesn't happen to find you appealing, that's entirely her prerogative. You'll take the hint and back off, but it doesn't mean that you were wrong to talk to her in the first place. The fact is that rejection happens all the time in all areas of life. It is just something you have to accept and learn to handle and push through in order to achieve anything. In fact, you should learn to love rejection, because when you get rejected, it shows that you are in the game and that you are hustling, which is infinitely better than sitting on the sidelines and watching. Every successful seducer, as well as every successful entrepreneur, artist, or sportsperson, has had to experience rejection and adversity to get to where they are today. This is simply a given. Any pickup artist or product that tells you otherwise is lying in order to make money. Any man who has slept with a large number of women will have been rejected by a whole lot more, just as the successful salesman will have contacted a great many more prospects than those he ends up converting. But that doesn't matter. The ends more than justify the means. What you must do is start loving the process. Enjoy talking to different women, and realize that each interaction that ends with a blowout is getting you closer to a yes, and just the fact that you approached in the first place puts you in the top 5% of men, above all those others who wouldn't have dared to do so. You should view rejection the same way regardless of how attractive the girl. When a woman is hot, the stakes can seem higher. But when you think about it, it's a logical fallacy that her opinion counts for any more than a less attractive person's. In fact, her opinion holds no greater worth than anyone else's, and it is hers alone. The next girl that you speak to may well be into you. Such is the variegated nature of female desire. Never make the mistake of believing that anyone's opinion is universal. In fact, women have so many more criteria for sexual attraction than men do that their differences in taste are, if anything, even broader. So don't worry about individual rejections. Treat them as feedback on your approach, adapt, and keep going. Just keep in mind that the more you approach, the better you will get at conducting these interactions and the more opportunities you create for yourself. And remember, nothing good in life ever comes easily. A note about leagues. Something that often gets talked about, usually by those who have little experience of actually going out and interacting with multiple women, is the concept of leagues. Example: don't bother asking Julie out. She's way out of your league. In my experience, the concept of leagues is a bit of a myth, or it is unhelpful at least, as it doesn't reflect the complexity of things as they actually are. As I stressed earlier, it's important to remember that there's no such thing as consensus, and that women have broader criteria for sexual attraction than men do, so their tastes tend to be wider. On a personal level, I've been rejected outright by objectively unattractive girls only to end up having sex with much hotter ones. There really is little rhyme or reason to it, but it's worth keeping two things in mind. Women will fuck you when there is chemistry between you, but in fact, Real chemistry is created naturally only when you interact with a girl you're genuinely attracted to. Really attractive girls tend, counterintuitively, to be easier to chat up than less attractive ones, as they are more confident in themselves and have become addicted to the game of flirting, having done it so many times before. As long as you are sure of yourself and leading the interaction at all times, you'll be fine. So, as stated before, whenever you see a hot woman, you must approach her no excuses. Follow this rule and you will find yourself swimming in an abundance of high-quality ladies in no time. Nightclub approaches. The nightclub environment is unique and entirely different from anything you will encounter in the daytime, and as such is worthy of consideration in its own right. In fact, it could be the subject of a whole book. Nightclubs are popular places for men to meet women and vice versa. The reasons for this are obvious. They are generally busy with a lot of traffic and therefore, many targets are available to approach. Busy venues make the process more anonymous and rejections less obvious to observers. And there is at least a covert social acceptance that, as much as many girls claim they go just to dance, these are places where hooking up happens and consequently there is less of a taboo around approaching in them. The main difference between meeting women in nightclubs as opposed to more neutral locations in the daytime is the degree of intensity you can bring into play. As a general rule of thumb, everything you do should be amped up 100% when you visit a night spot. Clubs are theatrical spaces that lend themselves to outsized social performances by those who visit them. Such performances are not only possible but also necessary. When you are in a club, you are competing for the girl's attention with the lights, the music, her friends, alcohol, the enjoyment of dancing, and other guys, everything else that the venue has to offer. In such an environment, you simply can't afford to be vanilla and blend in. You have to bring your best self to the party. That means dressing in a way that will attract attention for the right reasons, talking loudly from the chest and projecting your voice, and making your actions even more overtly dominant, decisive, and masculine than you normally would. In a nightclub environment, follow the same steps as outlined earlier, but don't be afraid to amp up the tension by getting into her space and making the interaction overtly sexual from the get-go. After all, a nightclub is one of the main arenas that exist where fast sexual expression is not only acceptable but also actually expected. The great thing about clubs is that the sheer number of girls there allows you to experiment with different approaches and to introduce risk-taking in your approach. If you get turned down, it doesn't matter. You can simply go on to the next girl. In terms of what you say when talking with girls in a club, use the same approach as previously discussed. Throw as many conversational leads out there as possible, and when one hooks, then pursue it. One tip: on balance, it is usually not a good idea to compliment girls too early on in your interactions. Remember that the downside of the club environment is that there is a lot of competition, and any even half-attractive girl will most likely have been hit on by alcoholically bolstered chancers several times already. Accordingly, the tendency is for a woman to more readily rebuff a guy who walks up and simply compliments her on her looks unless she is already attracted to him. A line such as, "Hey, I thought you were adorable, so I had to meet you," is fine in this context, but then you should switch up into light-hearted teasing and banter while sexualizing the interaction. See next section. Don't be tempted to enter into a soliloquy about how hot she is. You will seem both too needy and to be someone who values her only for her appearance. The latter might be true, but women prefer to be valued for something more fundamental than just their looks. A very famous and contentious pickup concept from the old days is negging, that is, making lightly negative comments about a woman's looks or personal style. The idea was less to make women feel bad about themselves, a popular misconception, than to differentiate the approaching man as one confident and non-needy enough not to kowtow or tiptoe around like so many others. Examples of negs are: "Nice dress, it's so popular now. You're the second cutest girl in here tonight. You're a bit of a nerd, but don't worry, you're still kinda cute." In each case, a compliment is marked with just a tinge of negativity, enough for the girl to pause and wonder how come this guy has the nerve to say such a thing. As with much in attracting women, this dynamic is entirely counterintuitive, but it works. Delivered correctly with a teasing smile that indicates you're not being entirely serious. Or are you? Most girls will laugh and playfully punch you, demanding to know more about you. While I am not suggesting that you should go around insulting women, and you should always stop short of commenting negatively on her actual physical appearance, the likelihood is that this more humorous, bantering approach will pay greater dividends than slavish complimenting. That said, like all rules relating to meeting women, it is there to be broken. I pulled one of the hottest girls I've met in a club simply by walking up to her and telling her she was beautiful. The reason that this ended up working was less because of the line and more because of the masculine polarity I brought to bear on the interaction, and because my sexual intent was apparent from the outset, and I slowly amped this up throughout the rest of the interaction. So if you see a girl in a club and the only thing you can think to say is that she's beautiful, then don't wait for a clever chat-up line to come to you. Just do it. You never know where it might lead. Wingmen. A note here about so-called wingmen. That is, guy friends that you enlist to help out when you go to meet girls. What are the benefits of using a wingman? Well, there are many. For a start, most of us are not really used to going out alone and don't find it desirable. Going out together with friends to clubs and bars is a major part of the fun of a night out. You and your mate can joke around, have a laugh together, and generally enjoy the adventure, each using the other as a grounding influence. When it comes to girls, you can encourage one another to approach, even operating a system of rewards and forfeits. And crucially, your friend can babysit your girl's friend as while you chat to her. In terms of handling logistics, wingmen can be gold. A girl and her best friend are far more likely to leave a venue with two cool guys than she is to ditch her friend and leave alone with you. Also, and this has benefited me many times over the years, an experienced wingman will sometimes point out girls who are giving you signals of interest that you might not otherwise have noticed. There can be downsides though. If your wingman is inexperienced or not particularly socially savvy, he can sometimes do more harm than good. For example, it could be that you are doing really well with your girls before he says something stupid and you both end up getting blown out. Another difficulty is that if your wingman is one of your existing friends and unfamiliar with concepts such as those outlined in this book, or else he doesn't wish to embrace them, then, surprised by your increased confidence and skills, he might try to hold you back or even sabotage you. Even close mates can act in strange ways when their realities are threatened. If you do decide to go out with a wingman, it is vital that you choose carefully. Select someone who is socially well adjusted and is either naturally good with girls or who aspires to get good. Acquaint him with the principles outlined in this book and then lay down some ground rules. These are largely up to you, but things you might like to consider include the following. The person who approaches the group gets to choose the girl he likes. You don't want to end up competing over the same girl. Not only is it counterproductive, but it also makes you look foolish and desperate. On no account should your wingman ever judge you if you are rejected. A decent wingman should know the score that this is a game where you need to learn to love rejection to get good, and that the response of one individual girl means nothing. Perhaps most importantly, you and your wingman should always regard one another as more important than the girls. Say, for example, a girl you are really attracted to and are getting along with well says something rude to your mate. In that situation, you should always defend him. If the girl persists, you should leave. Never compromise a friendship to try to get with a girl. Again, doing so makes you look foolish and desperate. Your most important consideration, though, should be the following. Do I really need a wingman at all? Most times, you probably don't. I am a bit of a lone wolf. I've achieved some of my best pulls either when I've been out on my own, or when my wingmen have been elsewhere in the venue. In seduction, you have to be single-minded. In the end, attraction happens because you demonstrated sufficient man-to-woman polarity with a particular girl. Having a friend there to hold your hand isn't going to help with that, and in some cases, it might actually hinder it. Socializing with male buddies is crucial, but there is a time and a place, and it's not when you are out on the hunt. There is absolutely nothing wrong with going out to bars and clubs alone to meet women. Men have been doing it forever. There is no greater feeling of achievement than that created by going out to a venue alone and meeting a hot girl with no help from anyone. Then you are truly a man, someone unafraid to go out into the night, and create opportunities for himself out of nothing. You also avoid unnecessary distractions and can come and go as you please. So next time you call a friend to go out, ask yourself whether it's because you truly think his presence will help or whether it's actually because you are afraid to go out alone. If it's the latter, then force yourself to fly solo for a night. It will improve your confidence, and you'll be amazed at how much you can achieve. If people ask where your friends are, simply say they're in another part of the venue or had to leave early. Approaching groups, group theory, understanding the dynamics of groups and how best to infiltrate them was a very important part of the mystery method. The idea being that you would approach and captivate sets of girls and guys in the venue before isolating the particular girl you were interested in and seducing her in private. Of course, it helped that Mystery was himself a trained stage magician and had a very real and tangible skill with which he could entertain people. Don't get hung up on this point. You don't have to be good with groups to enjoy success with women. By all means, approach them later in a night out when you have talked to lots of people already and are in the mood, but don't make it a special focus. There is something about the idea of being able to go out and dominate socially that perhaps appeals to the ego. But is it the most efficient way of seducing women? No. Leave your ego at home. It is far better to spend your time approaching groups of 2 or 3 girls while focusing the bulk of your attention on those who are alone. In a nightclub situation, they will most likely be on their way to the bar or the toilet, or outside having a cigarette. During the daytime, I rarely, if ever, approach girls who are not alone. There is a counter-argument that states that being able to dominate a group displays alpha male characteristics that are attractive to women. While this is undoubtedly true, the logistics that you then have to deal with often outweigh any benefits accrued. Make things easy on yourself. The goal is not to reveal yourself as some kind of social superstar, but rather to meet and seduce new girls quickly and efficiently. All of that said, don't hesitate to infiltrate larger groups as and when it's necessary, i.e., if there's a particularly hot girl there that you just have to approach, and there is no other way. In these cases, remember the principles discussed earlier. What doesn't matter, and there is no consensus, and go in with confidence. You can either approach the whole group and use a situational opener. Hey guys, have you seen that idiot on the dance floor in the white suit who thinks he's John Travolta? Or, depending on how they are positioned, you can simply approach the individual girl you like and start talking to her alone. Either method can work well. You should do whatever you can at the moment. Cock-blocking, a particularly annoying feature of the nightclub scene, is so-called cock-blocking. That is, when you approach a girl and her friend, who is usually female, but occasionally male, says or does something to prevent the interaction from going any further. This can range from a simple, "She's here to dance," or "fuck off," to more physical responses where the third party will place herself between you or actually move her friend out of the way so that you can no longer talk to her. Sometimes this happens even when the initial response from the target girl has been good. Of course, this kind of behavior is not only extremely irritating, but it is also often very rude, and unfortunately, there is no easy answer to it, except, again, to do whatever you can at the moment. If your target girl genuinely looked interested prior to the cock-blocking, then you could try fronting it out, saying something like, "Your friend and I like each other. Let me talk to her, just for a minute." Or you could try calling out the bad behavior, asking your target, "Is she always like this?" Probably the most alpha response is simply to say loudly and firmly, "Stop cock-blocking," but none of these are guaranteed to work. The truth is that the nightclub environment, as loud and disorientating as it is essentially a crapshoot. Just go in, do the best you can at the moment in each interaction, and don't get too hung up on individual successes and failures. Here, it is important to keep in mind Law 2, believe in abundance. It is easy to become emotionally attached to the outcome of a particular interaction in a club, easy and illogical. Why get hung up on a girl you only saw for the first time 2 minutes ago? There are many, many more like her, probably in the same venue, and certainly elsewhere. Stay calm and play the long game. Don't tolerate bad behavior. Call it out when necessary, but otherwise save yourself time, your greatest asset, and simply move on to the next girl. Free yourself from the need to look cool. If things aren't going well, just walk. Remember that your objective is not to have perfect social interactions. It is to have sex. Simply approaching and putting in the action places you in the top 5% of guys. Real life example. Jennifer. I was out in a club off Leicester Square when I saw Jennifer being chatted up by another man. The place was a bit of a dive, albeit a fun one. A kingdom of overpriced drinks and chart are be largely populated by skanks and their orbiters. I used to go there frequently. Those who warn against the kinds of people you meet in clubs are wrong. In fact, many intelligent, articulate people with a lot going for them pass through these places every night, and I've met girls in them that I've gone on to have long-term relationships with. That said, Jennifer was a cut above the type of girl I had anticipated meeting on this buy one shot, get the next free Thursday night. Slim, with an expensive finishing school posture and curly blonde hair falling down her back, it was as though she had a classy girl stamped on her forehead. Inevitably, every guy in the place was checking her out. I watched as she chatted to the guy she was with, trying to work out what to do, until she blew him off and began walking in the direction of the bar, where I was sitting. It was now or never. I would have to make a move. After all, if I delayed any longer, one of the other guys would pounce. I stood up and walked directly towards her, looking at her straight on, without flinching. Then we were face to face. "Hey," I said, looking her in the eye. "You're beautiful." She appeared to consider me for a moment. "You're not so bad yourself," she said. "Let's go grab a drink," I said, taking her by the arm and leading her to the bar. A while later we were upstairs on a couch making out. Jennifer was all over me, her all-American good girl demeanor now completely discarded as she grinded in my lap and stuck her tongue deep down my throat. I didn't have sex with her that night. Logistics were not my friend, but I did a few nights later, and we saw each other for a few months after that. She remains one of the hottest girls I've ever hooked up with. Now, if you recall my personal history, which I outlined at the beginning of this book, you will know that the notion of walking up to one of the hottest girls in a club and pulling her in front of an envious male audience would have been completely outside of my reality just a few years earlier. So what went right in this instance? Well, for a start, my posture, stance, and most importantly, my eye contact were strong and dominant. My approach created attraction. I owned the interaction like a man and communicated to her straight up that I was interested in her physically, with no pussyfooting around. I ignored social pressure. I was also physical with her, taking her by the arm immediately, and progressing this through making out to eventual sex. Was all this possible because I had suddenly become some uber-confident alpha male immune to self-doubt and concern about leagues? No. Actually, I was slightly intimidated by Jennifer, initially at least. She was beautiful, affluent, intelligent, and well-traveled, with all the social confidence that brings. Whenever I hook up with a girl like that, there's a lingering, nagging doubt that she's too good for me and that she's likely to drop me in preference for a taller, stronger, richer, more handsome guy at any moment. But what I feel inside doesn't matter. It's how I deal with it that counts, and the best way to combat feelings of insecurity is to fake it until you make it. So with Jennifer, I simply clamped down hard on any initial feelings of inferiority I might have had and acted as if I were the strong, confident man that deserved to have sex with her. The results speak for themselves. It's not so much what you are that count as identity is mutable anyway. It's all about how you act. Core principles. Being successful with women is about retaining your integrity as a man. Approach girls with entitlement. You are screening them to work out if they are worthy of you, not the other way around. If you are lacking in confidence, then fake it until you make it. A confident approach creates attraction in itself. A solid masculine posture and stance are important. Strong, direct eye contact is vital and will do most of the heavy lifting of the seduction for you. There is no magic pickup line. Use a direct or indirect opener, and then bridge to normal conversation. Use statements and observations and, "You seem like the kind of woman girl who," assume intimacy and keep throwing in conversational hooks until something sticks. Learn to love rejection. It is part of the process. There is no such thing as consensus. Don't fear social pressure. Society is an illusion. There are only individuals, and each one has a unique set of views and opinions on the world. Don't buy into the concept of leagues. Go for the girls you want unapologetically. Remember, he who hesitates masturbates. In a nightclub environment, follow the same pattern above, but be more sexual and confrontational. Leave your ego at home. Exercise 1 month challenge. Now you are ready for the big one, the challenge that will skyrocket your game exponentially. In the next month or 30 days, I want you to approach 100 women about 3 a day and try to pull them, using the tools that you have learned so far. Remember the rule about approaching every woman you find attractive. Observe it. But in order to get to 100, you may need to approach a few second choices as well. It doesn't matter. The simple act of approaching and noting the reference experiences you receive will be incredibly beneficial. Push each interaction as far as you can, but don't judge yourself on the outcome of any of them. Remember that your only goal is to get to 100 approaches within a month. This is all you should judge success on. Keep an Excel spreadsheet noting the name of each girl, her contact details if you got them, her response to your approach, and what the outcome was. Feel free to add in more columns if you want. I have found it interesting to log which countries the girls I've met are from. Continue reading this book while you are undertaking the challenge. The next few chapters will further inform your approaches, helping you to refine and improve your technique. Law 5. Sexualize your interactions with women. What every international seducer and natural knows is that having made your initial approach, it is always essential to sexualize your interactions with women, beginning as early as possible, and amping up the tension as you go. At no point should there be any doubt that you are relating to one another in any way other than man to woman. In modern Western cultures, the rule is sex first, relationship after. This rule, although unwritten, is immutable and unshakable, and applies in all cases. Women have a binary sexual strategy. They look for alpha, lovers, to have sex with and to impregnate them, and they look for beta, provider, types to care for them and raise their children. Now, of course, most women will refute this, and individuals all have different agendas, but nevertheless you can observe this pattern played out all the time. Initially, you need to put yourself in the alpha camp. Even if you are really a beta provider type who wants nothing more than to settle down with the girl of his dreams in a cozy family situation, in order to get there, you must first attract the woman. After sex, when you have decided you like her and you want a relationship with her, it is relatively easy to switch down a gear into beta, but it is very hard to go the other way. Sex cements the attraction between you and makes it unequivocal that this is a man-woman dynamic. Nothing else counts. Not a good reaction to an approach, not flirtation, not even kissing. In today's sexual marketplace, all of these things are meaningless. A woman won't regard you as a serious proposition until after she's slept with you, and not always then, in some cases. Generally, once sex has taken place, you are in a better position to dictate whether this will be a one-night stand, a fuck buddy arrangement, or the start of a relationship. Because women are the selectors, the gatekeepers to sex, it is only once a man has broken through her defenses that he is in any position to dictate terms or even appear on her radar as a serious consideration in many cases. The friend zone, so ubiquitous that a neologism was created in its honor, the friend one, is the dreaded state wherein a man who has a sexual interest in a woman is told by her that she only sees him as a friend and that nothing more can happen. Whatever you do, you must avoid this situation at all costs. In most cases, the friend zone is pretty much synonymous with onitis, a concept discussed earlier. If you are currently in the friend zone with a girl you like, that is, if you have expressed an interest but she has rejected you and you are still hanging around her, then turn back to the section on onitis and follow the steps laid out there to extricate yourself. But always remember that prevention is better than a cure. If you follow the advice in this chapter and sexualize your relations with women from the get-go, you need never face the friend zone again. In many of the discussions on this topic that I have seen, friend zoning has become a verb. Example: Samantha friend zoned me. Understand that no one has the power to put you in the friend zone except yourself. It is a man's responsibility to express sexual intent in his dealings with attractive women from the start. If she happens to reject this frame, that's fine. You simply walk away. What you must never do is accept the consolation prize of friendship after the event. It is a one-way path to oneitis and emotional torture. More than this, it is dishonest. The truth is that you don't really want to be friends with her at all. You want to be her lover. In every interaction you have with a woman, you must be strong and dictate terms from the beginning. Of course, she has the right not to fall in line, but you also then have the right to walk away from her and not buy into a phony offer of friendship, which will inevitably just lead to further mental torment for you down the line. The way to quash the friend zone is to establish a strong sexual frame from the outset, come what may. Such a frame is communicated through the elements we discussed earlier: strong eye contact and a dominant, masculine posture. There are two further elements, both of which are vital: touch and verbal spikes. In any successful seduction, these will be employed in tandem and slowly dialed up throughout the whole interaction from the initial meeting to sex. The way you should think of it is rather like the diagram above. The interaction is a funnel, where the intensity of the dual elements of touch and sexualized verbal spikes are slowly increased throughout until sex occurs at the end. Of course, the degree to which you can be sexual will to some extent be determined by the environment you find yourself in. So, if you are in a quiet art gallery, for example, then by necessity you will be less sexual than if you are in a busy nightclub environment with a charged atmosphere. Even so, you must still dial up touch and verbal spikes, even if you are compelled to be more subtle. Fear this may sound easy to do in theory, but in practice, many guys find it very hard. The reasons for this trait are twofold. Because society and the culture at large have trained men to believe that girls are less sexual than they are, and that they will be gravely offended if a guy drops in a sexual comment or touches her. Even worse, some guys have been conditioned to think it's wrong or lacking in respect to do so. When an interaction is going well, many guys won't risk breaking rapport by dropping in something that might upset the girl and cause her to walk away. This is probably the more common fear as well as the more insidious. Understand, being sexual, rather than putting her off, will increase her attraction to you in most cases. Girls like strong, confident men who are sexual and go after what they want without apology. Also, being sexual is a bulletproof friend zone destroyer. Look at it this way. If the vibe is going well with a girl and you drop in something, you should always lead, allowing her to enjoy that masculine-feminine polarity. As stated, you need to pepper each interaction with physical and verbal spikes. These should be delivered in tandem and exponentially over the span of the interaction until sex occurs. Physical spikes. The touch ladder touch is vital in interacting with women in a sexual way, and was another of the biggest realizations that skyrocketed my game. I cannot overemphasize the importance of touch. If you are not a tactile person, as I wasn't, then you need to learn and learn fast. Touch is the fundamental way in which we demonstrate sexual intent. Do it right and it will kill the friend zone and lead to sex fast. You should think of touch as being like a ladder that leads all the way up to sex. The sooner you get onto the bottom rung, the better. The more accustomed a girl becomes to physicality between you, the more likely it is that sex will occur. You need to start touching her as early in the interaction as possible and escalate as it progresses. But what do I mean by touch, and how do you do it without coming across as a creep? Think of touch as spreading across this range, sexual, and she walks off in disgust, then in all probability it was never going to work out anyway. Much better to push the envelope early and risk losing her. In reality, you have nothing to lose anyway and much to gain. When you talk to women, remember that they are sexual people, arguably more so than men, and once you start meeting and attracting them regularly, you will be amazed at the crazy things that happen all the time. You will start to see inside the matrix and realize that you can get away with so much more than you ever thought possible. And of course, sex is happening constantly. With all of this in mind, don't ever feel that you need to talk to girls as though they are some gentle species to be shielded from the realities of the world. Such thinking is naive and the mark of a beta. Also, don't be intimidated by attractive women. However hot she may be, She is just another human being like you getting through life, and she has her own issues to face. Even if you are an 18-year-old World of Warcraft nerd and she is captain of the cheerleading squad, recognize that she is just a person, and the invincible sexual power she seems to hold at the moment will only last for a few years, probably until her mid to late 30s, whereas yours, as a man, will last a lot longer because men's attractiveness is not only based on looks but also charisma, earning potential, masculine dominance, humor, and a whole host of other factors. In the end, the playing field will be leveled, and understanding this should help you to keep things in perspective and stop viewing interacting with hot women like it's a big deal. Finally, it is your job as a man to sexualize the interaction. Handshake, social, touching, kissing, sex. In the majority of cases, you will start on the left and move right over a period of time that could span a few minutes or a few weeks, depending on the girl, the circumstances, or the setting in which you find yourself. There have been cases where I have walked up and simply started kissing the girl, and sex can also happen very quickly, even within a few minutes of meeting. Get used to this idea, and look out for opportunities where it seems possible, but otherwise observe the pattern above, making sure you're always pushing things just a little bit further. Here are some specific steps broken down for you. When first meeting in a daytime or formal setting, shake her hand, making sure that you maintain strong, direct eye contact. Still holding her hand, put a firm hand on her lower back and pull her in towards you, then kiss her on both cheeks. If I am in a club, I will high-five her and then grab her hand and twirl her around before pulling her close to me and dancing with her in a faux ballroom style. Sometimes, I'll just pick her up and carry her off somewhere more private. Seek to isolate her, that is, arrange a date for another time, or if possible take her to a coffee shop or another part of the bar club there and then. Get into deeper conversation, and emphasize your points by touching her frequently on the lower arm or the shoulder. Initiate handholding. You'll be amazed how quickly you can do this. I generally start holding a girl's hand within minutes of sitting down. This can be tricky if you're new to it as it feels ballsy, but it signals a deliberate upping of the ante, and many times the girl will simply accept it. When this happens, you are unequivocally out of friend zone territory. At first, she might pull her hand away. If this happens though, don't worry. Just continue the conversation with her, and try again a little later. Pull her in towards you and embrace her. Do this frequently. Touch her hair, push it back out of her eyes or behind her shoulder if it's long. Get in close and smell her neck, saying her perfume is incredible. Start kissing her neck and ears while playing with her hair. If she resists any of the above, don't worry, and whatever you do, don't look hurt or sad. Just smile, carry on talking, and try again later. Remember that the alpha male is persistent, amused, and goes for what he wants. Going for the kiss. There is always that fateful moment in any male-female interaction when the guy goes in to kiss the girl. If handled incorrectly, this moment can be one of excruciating embarrassment for both parties. But if you have established strong male-to-female polarity and built up touching through your interaction, then it won't come as such a surprise. So when is the right moment to go in for the kiss? Really, the only way to get a sense of this is to interact with many girls and build an instinct for it. By this time, I would estimate that I have kissed or attempted to kiss upwards of 1,000 women, so I have a fairly good feel for it by now. If you haven't, the only fail-safe way is to go out and experiment until you have to. One thing I would say, though, is that the right moment is probably a lot earlier than you think. The truth is that women, like men, are either attracted on a visceral level or not. As such, hours of warming up aren't really necessary for her to kiss you, although this might generally be considered the more socially acceptable approach. These days I will often go in for the kiss within the first few minutes of a meeting if it's somewhere like a club, or within the first 10 or 15 minutes of a first date. She may or may not reciprocate the first time. It doesn't really matter. If she doesn't, just keep talking and try again a little later. Never look hurt or apologize. Remember that persistence is unapologetically going for what you want is an attractive masculine trait. The way you should go in for the kiss is like this. When there's a pause in the conversation and you have good eye contact, Bring your hand up to her cheek to steady her face, then bring your face in close to hers to kiss her. You don't need to say anything. Now one of three things will happen. She will either kiss you, pull back, or pull back and walk off in a nightclub, first meet scenario. If she kisses you, then all is good. If she pulls back and walks off, then game over, on to the next one. But if she backs off but stays, the most frequent outcome, then you're still in the game. Don't worry about it, don't get embarrassed, and whatever you do, don't apologize. Just change the subject, keep talking, and then try again a little later. I've literally spent entire nights trying to kiss girls, with them giving me the cheek, only for them to finally give in right at the end. Sometimes, you can even make a joke. Hey, great deflection technique you have there. Or, you know, I really wanted to kiss your cheek just then, that was so good. Or whatever. Always remember this point, girls expect you to escalate. If you don't, she'll think something's wrong and get turned off. If you get blown out going for the kiss, it doesn't matter. If you are unreactive and don't act offended, she'll respect you for trying, and most likely she'll kiss you when you try again later. It all comes down to male entitlement. You are entitled to kiss her because you are an attractive guy, and you are used to women wanting to kiss you all the time. Verbal spikes as shown in the diagram. At the same time that you are escalating physically, you also need to be escalating verbally. These two things should happen in tandem. The way to do this is to prevent the conversation from getting too friendly. Men are sometimes happy just because an attractive woman is talking to them, but this is not enough. Your job is to make it overt that this is a sexual interaction, man to woman, rather than merely a friendly one, which, when you are looking to get laid, is of no value. Verbal spikes not only let her know that you're hitting on her, but also create attraction by signaling that you are a sexual guy who is unafraid to say what he likes. The way to verbally spike is as follows. As the conversation is going on normally, look directly at the girl and drop in one of the following. You're so sexy when you talk about tax returns, auditing, etc. You look innocent on the outside, but you have this really sexy look going on in your eyes. You look fucking hot in that dress. Your ass tits look amazing in that. You have fucking great legs. Stop hitting on me like that. If some of these sound crude, that is intentional. The use of the word fucking, for example, is used deliberately, as it intensifies the interaction. I wouldn't recommend that you say anything like this right off the bat, although it can work in a club situation. It's about calibration. But the idea is to cut through any sense of politeness or social convention, showing intent with something jarringly sexual. As stated before, the seducer must be a man unafraid to break through polite convention in his quest to get the girl. Now, of course, if you say any of these things or if you escalate physically, there is a chance the girl will react negatively or even get up and walk away. Fine. That is her prerogative. As I've mentioned, guys are often afraid to mess up the good vibe they have created with a girl. But you need to understand that a good vibe, in and of itself, is of no value and can actually be damaging if your intention is to have sex with her. If she walks away, then the likelihood is she wasn't into you anyway, so you've just saved yourself and her some time. Basically, you need to position yourself as a sexual guy who is unafraid to say what he wants, even if this is slightly outside of what is commonly thought socially acceptable. Role reversal. The final verbal spike, "Stop hitting on me like that," is perhaps the most interesting on the list and opens up a whole realm of conversational possibilities for you to play with. The idea is to reverse roles so that you make it seem as though the girl is hitting on you. This works well for several reasons. First, it firmly positions you as the prize, with her chasing you. This is a very good frame to set, and the very fact that you feel entitled enough to set it is attractive. It also positions the girl as a sexual predator, which she will love because it will make her feel sexy and because there's some truth in it. This technique demonstrates that you get it, that women are sexual beings and that you are cool with it, putting you in a very good position. What I do is drop in the seeds of role reversal early on, and then extrapolate throughout the rest of the interaction, creating this whole running joke about her wanting to get me into bed and take advantage of me. As a matter of course, I will say things like, I'm not feeling very safe here. The way you're looking at me, I can tell you just want to get me alone and have your wicked way with me, while I am physically escalating myself. Try it. It's a lot of fun to do and very effective. Direct sexual references. A lot of my game is based around double entendres and deliberately misinterpreting things girls say as sexual. For example, if she says something innocent like, "I have to get up early tomorrow," I might say, "So you can ravish me again in the morning? Wow, you're a nymphomaniac." Thus always casting the girl in the role of a sexual aggressor. Over time I have become quite skilled in picking out sexual angles on innocent remarks. Having a dirty mind helps. And you can too. But there is another important element to verbal spiking, which is simply making direct sexual references to the things you two will do together. Always be assumptive. This is on. This is going to happen. This takes some courage at first, as you are breaking the fourth wall, so to speak, in social convention by talking openly about what you intend to do together rather than keeping it veiled, as is more common. So, for example, while making out with a girl, I might tell her that I'm going to take an ice cube and slide it down her neck and her breasts, and then down her stomach before licking the ice cube and then going down on her. Or I might tell her I'm going to bend her over, slap her ass, then fuck her hard. Of course, you need to be at a place in the interaction where the girl is attracted to you sufficiently in order to get away with this. But at the same time, talking openly about sex is a massive turn-on for girls, as they get to imagine doing it with you, as you demonstrate that you are a dominant, unapologetic guy who knows what he wants as well as what she wants, and is non-judgmental. Of course, doing any of these things can be nerve-wracking, especially at first, and even more so if the girl is very attractive. But what you need to do is treat every girl the same. In fact, you should take more risk the hotter the girl, simply because other guys won't have had the courage to do so, and it will set you apart. Also, regardless of levels of attractiveness, all women basically respond to the same things. The key is always to assume that it's on and that she is into you. If you find this hard to do, then fake it until you make it. You must always go into every male-female interaction with the belief that you are the prize, not her. Real-life example, Kat. I rarely mix business with pleasure, but Kat was one of those girls. As soon as I saw her around the building where I worked, I knew that I had to get her. A slender young brunette with long, luscious hair, a cute ass, and a naughty look in her eyes. She was exactly my type. In general, seduction in the workplace is not something I recommend, as there is a lot at stake. If you mess up, you have to contend with the awkwardness of remaining in the proximity of that person for 8 hours a day until one of you leaves. And there are also potential consequences with your friendly HR department if you miscalculate and come on too strong. Having said that, it is well known that many couples first meet at work, so it can work. Just proceed with caution. Having been burned before, in the case of Kat, I opted for a strategy of maximum discretion. I chatted to her in front of colleagues a few times and threw in a few humorous, teasing remarks, but did nothing to indicate to anyone that I might be interested in her, instead biding my time, waiting for an opportunity. My chance came at a staff night out at a club. Standing next to Kat at the bar, out of earshot of her female workmates, I suspect they would have cock-blocked me. I suggested, with strong eye contact and a cocky smile, that we should meet for a drink outside work for the purpose of networking. My meaning was clear that the drink had nothing whatsoever to do with networking, and she got it, giggling, and then agreeing to meet up the following week. Several lightly flirtatious Facebook messages followed, and then finally we went out to a venue as far away from the office as possible. As soon as we met, I began dropping in verbal spikes, telling her that I was nervous, as she looked like a sexual predator, and discussing sexy underwear with her that we saw in a shop window. Over the first drink, I took her hand. She complied, allowing me to hold it. I also put a hand on her thigh from time to time, when emphasizing a particular point. I also used a line that I have to credit to RSD and which is stunningly effective. I'm telling you right now that we're definitely not having sex tonight. This is a first date, and I'm just not that kind of guy. Sorry. This works incredibly well because it introduces the idea of sex into the situation directly. while tantalizingly withholding it, making you appear slightly unobtainable and a bit of a challenge. I also went in for a kiss extremely early, too, probably as we were nearing the end of the first drink. She rejected it, giving me the cheek, but I just smiled and told her how good her deflection technique was. I then flipped the script, joking about how forward she was, trying to kiss me so early in the evening. I took her from the first bar to another place, an upscale hotel lounge. Changing venues is essential on a date. It shows the girl that you can lead, and it builds intimacy because you experience a journey together that takes in multiple stops. Also, if a girl has gone to 2 or 3 places with you, she is much more comfortable with you and more likely to agree to go home with you at the end of the night. At the lounge, we began making out. This is a great indicator that the girl is into you, but it is not the be-all and end-all. As girls make out with many guys they don't end up sleeping with. You still have to close the deal. Afterward, we walked through the fairground on Leicester Square, and I took her on the big wheel. Physical, out-of-the-ordinary sensations like these are great, as they are exciting, pump up the vibe between you, and increase that together on an adventure feeling. All throughout this, I was increasing the touching and throwing in verbal spikes of various kinds, i.e., imagine if we got stuck at the top of the wheel. How terrible. We'd have to have sex to keep warm, etc. It doesn't matter if these are quite silly. The important thing is that you are sowing the seeds by referencing sex between you. As it got later, I suggested that she should come back to my place. Just for an hour. After a little coaxing, she agreed, and we went home, where we had sex several times before going into work again the next day. This is a good example of how with persistence, and the use of verbal and physical spikes you can turn a first date into an opportunity for sex. Core principles in modern Western culture, sex always comes first. A relationship may or may not flourish after that. You need to position yourself as an alpha in order to be deemed a credible sexual proposition in the first place. Never allow yourself to enter the friend zone. Establish a strongly sexual vibe with her from the outset through physical and verbal spikes. Don't be afraid to be sexual, it will make you more, not less attractive to her. Learn to escalate touch, it will skyrocket your seduction skills. Go in for the kiss as soon as you can. The right time is a lot earlier than you think. Sexualize your conversations with her with verbal spikes, role reversal, and direct sexual references. If she reacts negatively to any of the above, dial down, be unreactive and unapologetic. Try again a little later in the interaction. Never look hurt by anything. Use your common sense. If a girl ever tells you straight out to stop, then stop. No means no. Exercises. At this point, you should have embarked on your 30-day challenge to approach 100 women. Your exercise for the next 7 days is as follows. Use the information in this chapter to add physical spikes into your interactions wherever possible. Your aim is simply to introduce light physical touch, perhaps simply a handshake or a pat on the arm while you are talking to girls. Note down the results you get. In general, you will be surprised how receptive people will be. In interactions that are going well, you should also aim to drop in at least one sexually loaded, flirtatious remark of the kind described in this chapter. Disclaimer: it goes without saying, but you must calibrate your actions to the situation and don't do anything inappropriate. Never, for example, try to force physical contact on a girl who is walking away or who is otherwise clearly uninterested. The idea is to lace those interactions that are going well with light, flirtatious physical touch, and banter. See how you get on, note down the results, positive and negative, and calibrate your approach accordingly. You'll soon get a feel for what is possible and start to see the power of these techniques. And remember that you are a man of abundance. If it's not working out with one prospect, say goodbye politely and go and find someone more receptive instead. Law 6. Push it to the extreme. Having read this far, you should have acquired a belief in the principle of abundance with regard to women. Nevertheless, each time you meet a new girl, it is your job to push the interaction as far as you possibly can under the circumstances in which you find yourself. This is by no means a contradiction and is necessary for the following reasons. It communicates that you are a man of action who can take charge and get what he wants. You might get laid. Realize that sex happens every day and night. A lot more is possible than you currently believe. If you don't get laid, pushing forward with an interaction will at least give you a valuable reference experience to take for next time. A lot of the time, proficiency with women comes down to experience and figuring out what works and what doesn't. You may never see her again, especially if you live in a densely populated metropolitan environment. As discussed, sex comes first, and relationships second. Don't fall prey to friends first propaganda. If you get a girl out on a date and don't sleep with her, there's a possibility that you will never see her again, however well you get on. Women, particularly young, attractive ones, have a plethora of options open to them, ranging from so-called beta orbiters, male friends, in their social circle who want to fuck them to all those guys who like their pictures and leave messages on Facebook and Instagram to guys they meet in bars, at work, at parties, etc. These options are quadrupled in major metropolitan environments like London and New York, where there are many distractions for everyone. A kiss means nothing, and second base means very little. The only way to truly get on a girl's radar is to fuck her, and fuck her good. Therefore, get out of the habit of viewing dates as cozy meetings where you get to know one another. Instead, approach every date strategically, with the intention of taking the girl home for sex at the end of it. Of course, this is not to say that just because you don't sleep with her the first time your chances are blown forever. In many cases, the two-tier model, where you get her comfortable with you on the first date, only to take her home on the second, is optimal. The point is that you must rid yourself of conventional dating ideas and always pursue sex early. So what does pushing every interaction to the extreme mean in practice? Obviously, it changes depending on the circumstances. Say you meet a woman on public transport during your journey to work, and if you commute, this is something you should be looking to do regularly. Realistically, it is highly unlikely that you are going to have sex there and then, so the furthest you can push it is getting a phone number. That's fine. You've done your job. But if you are on a date, or in a bar or nightclub situation, then you need to go for a kiss at least, and really you need to go home with her. Remember, the girl isn't going to lose respect for you for trying. In actual fact, if anything, her respect will increase because, let's be honest, she knows you want to sleep with her anyway. So if you don't at least try, then she will either think something's wrong or that you're a pussy. So at least take the shot, even if you think that it's unlikely to happen tonight for whatever reason. You won't lose out. Logistics. At base, successful seduction is all about creating opportunities and handling logistics, both hers and yours. Her logistics. Whenever you meet a girl, you need to ascertain the following. Is she single? Where does she live? Who is she with? Is she the designated driver or something similar? What are her plans now for the next few hours in the morning if it's a club situation? If you know the answers to these questions, you'll have a pretty good idea of the chances of sleeping with her in the next few hours. Now use your common sense and don't under any circumstances bombard her with a checklist of questions. Instead, pepper the conversation with them so that you can form a picture. For example, if you meet her on the morning commute, you can be pretty certain she is going to work. However, it is still worth asking her where her office is, partly to be social but also to find out if it's close by. Perhaps you could meet up for a drink later. At that point, find out where she lives. Maybe you could share a cab home together. Once you're in the cab, suggest she comes back to your place to look at some photographs or watch a movie. Boyfriends, note that the single question can be problematic, as girls will frequently lie. The de facto phrase most used to deflect guys is, "I have a boyfriend." When you first meet, if she says this, you have no way of ascertaining whether it's true or not, and in a way it doesn't matter. A brush off is a brush off, after all. The best response is to say, "Oh, cool," and then carry on talking, moving off the topic, before asking for her number or otherwise escalating anyway. If she really has a boyfriend or if she's simply not interested, then she'll stop you. but the extra time you've bought will sometimes allow you to show her that you're a cooler guy than she initially thought, and if you're successful, then the boyfriend may magically melt away. What if she really does have a boyfriend, but she's giving you positive signals anyway? Here we get into an ethical question, and in the end it's down to you whether to pursue her or not. Realize that most attractive women have boyfriends of some kind, either guys they're sleeping with or fully fledged partners, and they will have varying degrees of commitment to these men. It may be that she's bored with her boyfriend, is looking to get out, and likes you as a new prospect. Many long-term relationships prosper out of such circumstances. That said, in general, the best advice is probably to avoid girls in committed partnerships. It's not worth the hassle, and remember the law of abundance: there are enough single ones out there to be going on with. Your logistics. These are all the elements that you can control, and you should make sure you have them handled. They include having condoms, money for drinks and cabs, a date venue that is near to your place and easy to travel back from, clean sheets, a pleasant, tidy room, music, candles. You want the interaction to run as smoothly as possible, so establish discipline and ensure all these things are organized before you go out. Once she's agreed to go back to your place, any glitches may cause her to reconsider. Bear in mind that the ultimate goal is isolation. You're not going to fuck her in a public bar, or you might, depending on your mutual tastes, but it's perhaps less than ideal, and the chances of fucking her increase exponentially when you get her back to your place. So your job is to make everything happen as smoothly as possible. That means not having stupid obstacles in the way that could have been avoided with forward planning. Bars and nightclubs. Unlike in most daytime interactions, when you're out in a bar or club, there's a very strong social precedent for taking a girl home and fucking her that night. In these locations, pushing the interaction as far as possible really means committing to an interaction with a girl and hanging in there until the bitter end, either until you get laid or until it's unequivocally clear that it's not going to happen tonight. Your club strategy should be to go around talking to as many different girls as you can. Accept that there will be varying degrees of success, and don't judge yourself for them. Instead, be proud of the fact that you're doing what the other 95% of guys don't: man up and approach. During the course of the evening, you will inevitably meet more than one girl who is receptive. Decide which one you want, and make a decision to hang in there for as long as it takes. Understand that the game of one-night stands or quick sex is won or lost at the end of the night. You can have a fun, flirty interaction with her at 9:30 p.m., but chances are she won't leave with you then. At 2 a.m. she might though, so up until that point you need to hang in there with her as long as possible. Of course, this needs to be done with social intelligence, and never in a way that will make the girl uncomfortable. But I've ended up sharing taxis home with girls I've had a great rapport with, even though in truth I lived on the other side of town. Once you reach her place, you can suggest you come in, just for 5 minutes. There's a good chance she'll invite you up for a coffee anyway. Attraction opportunity leads to sex in a majority of cases. You have to be in it to win it. Dates. As stated, stop thinking right now of dates as getting to know you exercises, and instead view them as an opportunity to get the girl you're out with home for sex that night. As with any skill set, only practice will yield proficiency. I have now come to a point where I am very comfortable on dates and can usually steer them in the right direction, but it has taken me many years and many hundreds of dates, perhaps even more than 1,000, to get the following formula down. Follow this to the letter with supreme confidence, and you will start to see great results. Here's what you do: buy a round of drinks and start talking. Sit close to her and quickly steer the conversation to sex by peppering it with double entendres. Go easy on this, though remember that you are establishing an erotic rather than comedic vibe. Ideally, you should hold hands with her almost immediately. Go in for the kiss early. If she resists, don't worry. Carry on talking, and then try again a little later. Repeat until successful. Buy a second round of drinks. Repeat until you are at a point where you are holding hands and kissing. When she's nearly finished her drink, say this: "Hey, let's go over to my place and watch a movie." I would generally recommend taking her to your place rather than going to hers. For a start, there's something more masculine about it. You're bringing the girl into your reality and controlling the interaction. And you want to avoid any nasty surprises that could interrupt the process, like her flatmates not going to bed and so on. But if she suggests it or logistically it seems to be the easier option, then, by all means, go to her apartment. When she agrees to leave with you, you need to get to your destination as quickly and smoothly as possible. I almost always use cabs. Public transport can be erratic, and it's a buzzkill. Jumping in a cab gives you privacy to carry on kissing and amping up the tension, and it gets you directly back to your place with the minimum hassle. Note that going to watch a movie at my place is generally understood to be code for let's go and fuck. I've said this many times to women, and rarely has a film ever been produced, or even referred to, once we've gotten back to my apartment. What you should do is start making out with her as soon as you get in the door, and then lead her to your immaculately clean bedroom. If she is sufficiently attracted to you, on most occasions, this will be sufficient. If she is reluctant though, take her to the sitting room or some other neutral space, and leave her alone there for a moment so that she can acclimatize herself to the environment. Wait for a few minutes and then come back in. In the interest of comfort, now can be a good time to actually put on a film, but make sure you're sitting next to her and physically escalating the whole time. As stated, attraction plus opportunity generally leads to sex, so the chances are you won't have to watch very much of the movie. Last-minute resistance. This is something discussed frequently on pickup blogs and forums, the frustrating tendency for certain women who have given every indication of being ready for sex not to want to go through with it when you have gone home together. This type of girl will make out with you, and she may even get partially naked, but she won't sleep with you. I have experienced this on several occasions, although probably more infrequently than I have heard it commented on by other people. I can't be certain, but I would guess that this is because in most cases I have laid down the foundations correctly, i.e., established a strong male-female polarity before taking the girls home. The standard seduction community advice in these situations is to pull back and remove your attention from the girl, perhaps turning away from her, checking emails on your phone, etc., thus forcing her to re-engage with you. This may well work with some girls. The technique I've employed more frequently though, and have found to be successful as well as enjoyable, is to simply wear the girl down with erotic attention. Approach it in the same way as you should approach the conversation with her. Just try anything and see what works. A classic technique is full body massage. Most girls love a massage and will be happy you suggested it. Pour on some baby oil, and go to it. Start working her back and shoulders and then her legs. Slowly work your way up from her feet to her thighs, then her buttocks, and then, depending on her level of compliance, start working her clitoris. In most cases, the girl will get so turned on that she will soon demand you fuck her immediately. No means no. Seduction is the art of moving an interaction from the first meeting to sexual intercourse. This should be done with charm, persistence, and cheeky humor. In the end, though, no means no. If she's not up for it tonight, you must respect that and leave the door open for next time. All girls are different. Some will sleep with you very quickly after the meeting, while others will want to wait longer. Relax. Nothing should be a big deal. If it doesn't happen tonight, then it will happen the next time you meet. And remember that you are a man who enjoys extraordinary abundance. Be cool. Real life example. Veronica. I first saw the fine features of Veronica's classically composed features through a haze of blue lights and dry ice in a nightclub in London's West End, and I knew that I would have to pursue her. Slim, with a dancer's body, she was a classic, slightly imperious Polish beauty, with a grace and femininity that shined through despite the somewhat raucous surroundings. As pulls go, I was lucky. This one was pretty easy. I'd been to a concert, so I was still buzzed from that, and I had warmed up in the club by talking to a couple of girls already. By the time I got to Veronica, I was feeling confident and very comfortable in the environment. It was clear from the outset that she liked me, and she offered little resistance, laughing at my jokes and bantering back and forth with me. It helped too that the friend she was with was not only very friendly and non-bitchy, but she had also hooked up with another guy, and so was distracted anyway. When you go out frequently, you will find that sometimes the stars align in your favor, and everything goes your way. You make this more likely by having your fundamentals down, approaching with strong masculine-feminine polarity, maintaining confident eye contact, and sexualizing the interaction through physical and verbal spikes. I liked Veronica, and it was getting late in the night, so I made a decision to hang in there with her to the end, come what may. I befriended the guy who had hooked up with her friend, and together we formed an unspoken wingman alliance, keeping both of the girls entertained until it was time to go. When the club was emptying out, Veronica told me that she lived in St. John's Wood, an area in North London miles away from my home, and that she and her friend would be taking a bus back there. "That's cool," I said. "I'm actually staying at a friend's place near there tonight. I'll come with you." On the bus, I carried on making conversation with them, joking around, masking the fact that I had no idea where we were going or any clear idea of what I would do when we got there. In the seduction process, it is sometimes necessary simply to go with the flow and not think too deeply about the outcome. I figured that the worst that could happen in this situation was that I would be left high and dry in North London, and I would have to get a bus or a cab back into town. Not such a big deal, really. "You're not coming back to my place tonight, you know that, don't you?" Veronica said. "Yes, I know that. It's fine. I would never go back to a girl's place on the first night anyway. I told you. I'm a very innocent boy." "Sure," she said. Finally, we arrived in her neighborhood and said goodbye to her friend and the other guy, and I walked her back to her flat. At this point, things felt slightly awkward. There was an air of unmet expectation, and I was worried she might feel intimidated being alone with me, although she didn't show it, and I don't think she was. I still had no idea what would happen when we got to her place. I simply cleared my mind and kept up with the light banter. As luck would have it, just as we reached her door, there was a giant explosion of thunder, and lightning and rain started to pour down. "You can't leave me out here in this weather," I said. "Look, let me in, just for 10 minutes. Just for, is your friend in these situations? Just for 10 minutes, just for an hour, just for coffee, etc." She hesitated. "Okay," she said finally. A few moments later, we were on her bed making out. After 20, I was giving her a massage. You can imagine where this led. The lesson here, push the interaction as far as you can, but be prepared for uncertainty along the way. Go with the flow, and don't be dependent on the outcome. Think, what's the worst that could happen here? If the most damning consequences are a taxi fare home, a bruised ego, and sleep deprivation, then better to roll the dice than not. Core principles: it is your job as a man to take it to the extreme each time. It shows you as a man of action, and you might just get laid. If you don't, you'll gather valuable experience. Failure to push it means you may never see this particular girl again. At base, seduction is all about creating opportunities and then handling logistics. Control what you can, and sort your own out. Improvise and work with whatever she throws at you. In nightclubs and bars, talk to as many girls as possible, and then in the last few hours of the night, pick the one you prefer who is most receptive and stick with her for as long as it takes to get her home and have sex with her. Dates are not opportunities for you to get to know the girl. They are opportunities for you to pull her home and have sex with her that night. Remember, in most cases, attraction, opportunity, sex. You have to be in it to win it. Exercise. By now in your 30-day challenge, you should almost certainly be taking girls on dates, either instant dates there, and then or dates arranged for another day. The challenge for your next date is to amp up the sexual tension through verbal and physical spikes as described in the last chapter, and then suggest the two of you go back to your place to watch a DVD. Even if you feel intimidated or you think she's likely to refuse, you must do it. If she does say no, you've lost nothing and gained a reference experience. If she agrees, take her home and escalate to sex. After the event, think about what happened and make notes. What went well? What seemed clumsy or awkward? What could you improve upon next time? Again, as part of your 30-day challenge, I want you to go out to a club or bar, talk to as many girls as you can as described here, and then towards the end of the night, hang in with the one you prefer for as long as possible. See how many obstacles you can overcome and how much social pressure you can withstand. Can you get her back to your place or go home with her? If not, is there a late-night restaurant or bar you can take her to, or even another club? By now, you should be accustomed to short-ish interactions with strangers. At this point, you should practice pushing these interactions beyond what seems comfortable in the direction of sex. Once more, when you're done, think about what happened and make notes. What went well? What seemed clumsy or awkward? What could you improve upon next time? Law 7. Have a certifiably insane degree of self-love. Too many men walk around thinking that the women they desire are superior to them. In the unlikely event, one of them accepts him for sex or a relationship, he assumes she must be doing him a favor, that there must be something special about their relationship. Beware, for this is how pedestalization, obsession, and heartbreak breed. Women, we are told from a young age, are attracted to cool guys. The problem for those of us who are not natural is figuring out what cool actually means and how we might embody it ourselves. The most powerful piece of advice about meeting women I have ever been given, one that changed my whole paradigm of thinking and levels of success, was that I should assume an insane degree of self-love. Now, the truth is there were probably already things I liked about myself, but social conditioning had taught me to be humble, not to brag, to keep my head below the parapet, and be a nice guy. None of these behaviors helped me with women. What did help was when I started communicating an irrational, almost absurd sense of self-confidence to the world through every element of my behavior, from the way I walked to the way I spoke to the way I dressed. This isn't about being big-head. It's more about recognizing what's unique and amazing about you and being proud of it. Once I had achieved congruence in this and carried myself as though I were a big deal, suddenly, mysteriously, my world changed, as women previously out of my reach started to make themselves available to me, and men began to defer to me. Very quickly, a truth that I had never been aware of before was revealed to me. The individual, not society, decides what cool is for him. Each man gives himself permission to be cool. What does cool mean? I remember looking at the popular kids at school and wondering what it was when you broke it down that was so great about them. Many weren't particularly good-looking or intelligent. They didn't have good taste in clothes or music, yet they still carried themselves as though they were a big deal. I often wondered why this was so, and who had given them permission to do so. I imagined it impossible that someone like me, someone so inherently uncool, could ever behave with such entitlement. For a while, I actually believed that somehow I wasn't allowed to dress fashionably, because those cool clothes were for other people who were already cool. Utter nonsense. In fact, cool is a self-designation. No one else gives you permission to be cool, and no one is magically endowed with the quality of coolness from birth. It is a mantle that you assume for yourself, and you can do so today right now. Remember, there is no such thing as consensus. Even if every single person in your immediate circle says you're a loser or acts as though they think so, 1. You don't know that's what they're thinking for real. 2. There is no empirically correct measure. 3. There's a big world out there, and others will think differently. Understand this now. It is you who makes the decision to dress cool, act cool, and be cool. You give yourself permission, and you should never seek it from anyone else. Become the embodiment of that ideal image of yourself you hold inside. Resistance as you start to make changes to yourself. You may experience social pressure from other people. If you buy new clothes, for example, then people used to the old you may complain or criticize. Ignore them. Their thoughts are irrelevant. They don't really care what you wear or what you are doing with your life. They are merely trying to push you down to your former position in the hierarchy so that they can feel better about themselves. Remember, what other people think of you is none of your business. Deluded self-belief. Your ultimate goal, though, is not mere coolness. You should aim beyond that for a diluted degree of self-belief. Your aim should be to walk around as though you are the most exceptional guy on the planet. If you accept the principle of the non-existence of consensus, you will see that no one can either give you permission to act this way or refute that you have a right to. You are free to do whatever you want. So how do you achieve this almost delusional state of self-regard? Give yourself permission to do so. Seek role models relevant to you and mirror them. Fake it to make it. Don't allow any contrary evidence to enter your reality. The first step is to make a decision, and you must make it absolutely. The second step is really important and helped me a great deal. Pick out celebrities and other people that you admire for their charisma, cool image, and behavior, and copy them. Think about how they dress, their mannerisms, and how they talk, walk, and act, and find ways to copy them without appearing incongruent. Read interviews with them, or better still meet them if you can, to suss out how they think, their attitudes to life, and how they handle common situations with a view to adopting their mindsets for yourself. Celebrities I have channeled include Robbie Williams when he was younger with his alpha body language, a complete conviction in his own attractiveness, and cheeky humor, and Russell Brand, whose idiosyncratic dress sense, florid verbal style, and laser eye contact I admire very much. Both display dominant male characteristics and have very tangible self-belief. I would also add Jay-Z to that list, as his grace, warmth, and humor are a welcome sheen on his ultimate alpha male persona. On the other side of the spectrum, you might consider someone like Harry Styles, who is boyish, scruffy, and relatively unconventional in looks but who has genuine charisma and great style. The people that resonate most with you and have the most congruence with your personal style are the ones to model. Also, try to ensure that all the influences you are receiving are positive: music, movies, books. Don't watch too much television. Listen to unsentimental music that will get you fired up and hungry, like rap and techno. Don't wallow in sad love songs, soap operas, reality shows, and other beta frivolities. Why should you adopt deluded self-belief? Because in order to be truly attractive to a wide range of women, you have to be prepared to stand beyond what polite society regards as normal social conduct. Entitlement is attractive. People will believe a narrative that is presented to them strongly and consistently. The important thing is that your self-esteem should be excessive, and this needn't necessarily be based on anything tangible other than the decision you've made for it to be so. That is all you require. Point 3 is particularly significant. People are essentially gullible, tending to accept what they are told. If you continually relate to them in a way that suggests you are cool, in the end, they will believe it, assuming you have your fundamentals down. This is why advertising works. Consistency is the key. Soon enough, people will accept the cool persona you present. Those that don't, you should simply ignore or phase out of your reality. And the best way to appear consistently cool? Have a primary mission or passion that has nothing to do with women. Real men are doers, not passive consumers. Choose something that you love doing, whether it is music, sports, photography, writing, or art, an activity where you put something out into the world. Make that your number one focus, and you will find yourself impassioned and full of vital energy, which will communicate itself to those around you. Having a passion will make you less vulnerable to the negative emotions of others and will make you cooler in their eyes. Finally, make sure that you have a group of other men that you can talk to. Male friends are valuable to you. Center yourself by catching up with them once a week and talking through your problems and successes. The male influence will keep you balanced and on your alpha path. Make sure they are men who understand and are encouraging of your mission, who are actively working to improve themselves too. Stick with the winners. Real life example, Carly. It was not the kind of club I was used to, at the time, what with everyone being dressed in leather and PVC, and women with their breasts exposed, and guys being led around on chains by their girlfriends in the catacombs of a discussed church somewhere in South London, all to a pounding techno beat. The green and blue tattoos, the bolts of metal that pierced lips and cheeks and eyebrows, and the sounds of sex and whipping that came through the chiasmic murk of dry ice and disco lights lent the whole scene a near hallucinatory sheen. Fortunately though, I was fully prepared and felt confident. I was wearing a pair of silver PVC jeans and a t-shirt with a red LCD display on it, both borrowed from a friend, and I felt fantastic. Fortunately, I had prepared in advance, getting ready in my flat and following the usual routine. I would listen to loud music, whatever I was into at the time, but usually techno, looking at myself in the mirror as I did so and visualizing myself literally taking over in the club I was to visit as though I were a rock star and this was my stage. As delusional as it sounds, I would deliberately cultivate the view that the world was a performance space on which I would take center stage every time I stepped out of my front door. That I had actually achieved little to warrant this at that point in my life didn't matter. I was aware of my potential as a writer, and I knew that I had a unique take on the world, and that was enough for me to convince myself that I was a star in my own head, at least. In order to heighten this peculiar self-love, I would often watch videos on YouTube that I found inspiring. One, in particular, was Robbie Williams performing his song, "Me and My Monkey," at Shepperton Studios. Why that particular track? Well, it was dramatic. And what a performance! Williams looks in great shape, and he has such confidence, such masculine charisma as he commands the audience behind the mic. I would also watch Russell Brand clips for a similar effect. These celebrities may not be to your taste, but it is hard to deny that they have charisma, and what I realized while watching them was that charisma is largely generated from within. It's an asset independent of talent, looks, or anything else. If they could radiate such confidence and personality, so could I. Fired up like this, I arrived at the club with my friends shortly after midnight and began hitting up girls. I enjoyed one early success, making out with a cute girl in a plastic nurse's outfit on the dance floor, but then I lost her in the crowd. Then nothing of any great value happened for a couple of hours, until, just as I was about to go home, I spotted Carly standing alone by the bar. A hot, 20-year-old brunette wearing a corset and ripped fishnets, with a pretty, mischievous face. She was entirely my type. I walked up to her and immediately began making out with her. After a few hours of fun at the club, I got a cab for her and her friend back to their halls of residence, where we ended up fucking until late into the next day. An irrational self-confidence can often win the day. Does this mean that I went around with real arrogance? No, certainly not. I've always suffered from low self-esteem rather than big-headedness. But thinking of yourself as a kind of performer when you go out, either to a club or in the daytime, can introduce a useful mental dissonance where you can feel superhuman and not really you, as you approach girls. This will communicate itself to them as incredible confidence that will draw people to you. Core principles: in order to truly supercharge your success with women, you need to cultivate a certifiably insane degree of self-love. It is the individual, not society, who decides what is cool for him and gives himself permission to be it. Become the embodiment of the ideal image of yourself you hold inside. Ignore external resistance. What other people think of you is none of their business. To develop deluded self-belief, first give yourself permission to do so, seek role models and mirror them, fake it until you make it, and don't allow any contrary evidence to enter your reality. Do this because to be truly attractive as a man, you must be prepared to stand slightly outside what polite society regards as normal. Entitlement is attractive, and people will believe whatever narrative is presented to them strongly and consistently. Have a primary mission that has nothing to do with women. Real men are doers, not passive consumers. Have a group of male friends you can meet with regularly who will support you on your journey. Make sure they are men who are committed to their own self-development and who will support you. Stick with the winners. Exercises: we have spent a lot of time considering external tactics and strategies to meet women. Continue to apply these while on your 30-day challenge, but in your downtime, shift the focus a little to concentrate on yourself. Take a piece of paper and spend 15 or 20 minutes describing an idealized version of you. Don't think too much, and don't censor yourself. Just write down in as much detail as you can the version of yourself you would be if you had the courage. What would you wear? How would you talk to people? What would your relationships with women be? What will you achieve in your life, now and in the future? Write in a stream of consciousness style, and don't worry about grammar or spelling mistakes. When you're finished, read it back carefully. This is your own personal blueprint. Now, whenever you go out to meet women or to do anything else, for that matter, read over what you have written, and then act as if you are already the person you describe and that you have already achieved these things. Understand this, you already are that person. Sure, you may need to make some refinements and perhaps change your personal circumstances, but fundamentally you are already there. If you can imagine it, you can be it. Role models. Which male role models resonate with you? There are obvious alpha male examples like Frank Sinatra, James Bond, and so on, but perhaps you can think of slightly less obvious figures that inspire you. Pick 3, and take a few minutes to write down on a sheet of paper exactly what it is about these people that sets them apart. Is it the way they walk, their posture, their physique, their verbal wit, and their skill? Jot down as many of these positive attributes as you can. Now, consider what it is about the people you've selected that appeals to you. The likelihood is that you identify with them because you see something in them that reminds you of yourself on some deep level. Note this and then use it to your advantage. Seeing ways in which you are similar to your model should give you permission to model some of their higher status behaviors. Regardless of fame and wealth, we are all the same, and what one man can do another can do also. When you go out, consciously start to incorporate your model's attributes into your own behavior. So, for example, if your role model has a particularly slow, powerful speaking voice, then experiment with adopting a similar style yourself. Remember, the goal here is not for you to become a copy of someone else. These are training wheels as you grow into your own, more confident personality. Your mission. Now it is time to identify your own personal life goal. Some people are lucky. Perhaps they have a particular talent or passion, such as football or guitar playing, that will readily translate into a life goal. Others are not so fortunate. If you fall into the second camp, now is the time for a little soul searching. Take a piece of paper, divide it into 2 columns, and spend some time writing down all of your skills and attributes on one side and all of your interests on the other. In doing this, you should start to see some crossover and interesting connectivity for its own sake, but it will also open you up to new people. Charity fundraising, sports, and even residence committees are all great places to make new friends. Ideas will occur to you. Perhaps you are very good at drawing, and you are obsessed with history. Why not release a book of drawings of Victorian England? Or perhaps you are a health fanatic and are interested in business. Go about setting up your own personal training company, or brainstorm ideas for an app you could develop. Find something that fires you up, that you are passionate about, and that has the potential to be bigger for you than merely chasing women. Finally, if you don't already have one, go about assembling a group of male friends that you can meet up regularly with. This can be as formal or informal as you like. The point is that you need to foster links with other men who will support you as you develop. If you don't have many friends, now is the time to develop your social network. Work or college is a great place to start. Taking classes in something you enjoy is not only benefit bonus law. Never mess up a sure thing. Perhaps the biggest mistake men make with women is not responding to the signals of interest that they send out, or otherwise messing up what should have been a sure thing. There used to be a concept in the community called fool's mate, which referred to those instances where a guy would essentially get lucky, i.e., he would attract a woman seemingly by chance rather than through good game. It doesn't count, the thinking went, because she liked him anyway. Now, absurd as it may sound, there is some merit in this idea, which was founded on the belief that you should develop a strong set of tools enabling you to attract women consistently rather than simply picking off so-called low-hanging fruit, the tools given to you in this book. But if the end game is to meet and attract more women, then it doesn't really matter how they come to you. It has been said many times that game is the art of not messing things up, and this is true. If you get a strong indication of interest from a woman in whatever form, say, for example, she gives you eye contact on a train carriage or in a shop, or she says something flirtatious to you at a party, then you must, whatever you do, follow up, using the techniques outlined in this book, of course. don't feel that it doesn't count, somehow because she initiated it. Life is too short for such an attitude, and anyway, as you start to become proficient with women, you will find that more avenues open up before you naturally, and you will also become more aware of the micro-indicators given out by a woman likely to respond positively to you. How to avoid messing up. Dealing with tests and annoyances. One thing you will find is that dealing with women, particularly multiple women, can be challenging. The road is never easy, and they will throw in plenty of curved balls to make it even more difficult. These include tests of all kinds, as well as forgotten dates, fake phone numbers, tantrums, crying, emotional blackmail, and many other pieces of assorted nonsense. Of course, each individual situation is different, and you should seek your male friend's counsel as things come up. But in general, your MO should be grace under pressure, be unreactive. The easiest way to mess up with a woman is to get sucked into her behavior and start reacting to her. Practice your poker face. Far better, when she throws something at you, is simply to smile at her with a kind of aloof detachment. Remember, nothing is ever a big deal. There is a world of abundance out there, and if she wants to play games, in the end, you can simply get up, say goodbye politely, and move on to the next one. The paradox of increased knowledge. Now you have come this far, reading and internalizing the 7 laws and going out and practicing them in many, many different interactions with real women, you will hopefully have had some positive experiences and seen how well things can go in best-case scenarios. With this can come a very specific problem. Every time you approach a woman and it doesn't go your way, say she brushes you off, or won't give you her contact details, or says she has a boyfriend, then you might find you have a tendency to scrutinize what you did and then blame yourself. Perhaps I wasn't dominant enough. If only I'd maintained better eye contact. If only I'd come up with a wittier retort, etc. While striving hard to obtain knowledge of what does work, you have also picked up a stick with which to beat yourself along the way. The irony in this is that many guys, me included, end up castigating themselves for failing with girls who they would previously have regarded as unobtainable. Of course, this way of thinking is unproductive. The fact is we are dealing with human interactions and the complete unpredictability of another person's behavior. Sometimes you can do everything right and still not get the result you desire. So whatever you do, don't get hung up on individual occurrences. By all means think about what, if anything, you could have done better, but don't dwell on it. Look back, don't stare. Instead, you should congratulate yourself on having had the courage to approach in the first place, and on having gained a new reference experience that will benefit you in the future. Remember, each time you interact with a woman you didn't previously know, however badly it goes, you are still normalizing the experience and making yourself more comfortable in socializing in this way. Make the process your focus rather than the outcome, and you'll be surprised to find that your results improve naturally anyway. Conclusion. By now you should be well into your 30-day challenge. Perhaps you've even completed it. The experience of approaching 100 women along with the knowledge of the 7 laws of seduction will fundamentally change your success with women forever. When you come to the end of the 30 days, it's time to sit back and take stock. Look over your notes, and think hard about the approaches you've made, and the successes and failures you've experienced. What did you do well? What went poorly? Perhaps there was one particular sticking point that kept coming up again and again that prevented you from getting the results you would have liked. This is something you need to work on. Look back through this book. Is it covered here? Or is it something you can run past your group of male friends? Or perhaps you know what the answer is already. Maybe you are simply not holding strong enough eye contact when you talk to women, for example. Now, for the next few weeks, you should make it your goal to correct this. So every time you talk to a girl, practice fixing her with strong, sexy eye contact. Make that your primary focus in the interaction. It is an ability to identify sticking points and a willingness to refine your technique that will start to get you exceptional results with women. Understand this point. Whatever any dating company looking to make a quick buck might tell you, there is no single, infinitely repeatable model or technique that is going to make you successful with women every time. The world is too multifarious and complex for that. and there are too many shifting variables. Every woman is different, and every single situation in which you find yourself is subtly or not so subtly different. The 7 laws of seduction are universal, but you will always need to have your fundamentals down. You should always believe in abundance. You will always have to create opportunities for yourself, and so on. That is why this book doesn't concentrate too heavily on lines to use or other external techniques. And one of the core messages here is that you should simply do whatever you can to extend the interaction at the moment. Don't worry that what you say may not be smooth or sound lame sometimes. Lame works. The truth of the matter is that women are biomechanically programmed to be attracted to men. If you are a man and you have your fundamentals in place, then you are already good enough to attract any woman. What you need to do is to create as many opportunities as you can to interact with those you are attracted to, and then expose them to your personality and to your masculine energy for as long as possible. If you go out and interact with women consistently and for long enough, you will start to observe certain overarching, meta-level patterns, which will give you the opportunity to tweak your approach and better calibrate yourself to the next similar situation. But realize that there is number 100% surefire method that will work in every case, and that rejection is an inevitable part of the process. As I've said, you should learn to love rejection. It shows that you're in the game and that you're one step closer to a yes. Delve deep into your masculine core and develop a hunter's instinct. Remember that men build and create. There is nothing more satisfying than going out and creating a great interaction or finding a new sex partner that you had never previously met before. I believe that the people who become really successful at seduction and probably anything else in life are simply those who want it badly enough. In his book Mastery, Robert Greene talks about the theory that to get really good at anything, one needs to spend 10,000 hours practicing it. While I am not suggesting that you immediately timetable out the next decade of your life to incorporate 10,000 hours of chatting up girls, the point is clear. The path to mastery is through repetition and time. I wouldn't like to hazard a guess as to how long I've spent on this, but 10,000 hours probably isn't far off the mark. Hours and hours in nightclubs and bars and out in the street, interacting with women I'd never met before, practicing different techniques, and all because I wanted it badly enough. The great news about mastery, though, and the central message of Greene's book, is that anyone can acquire it. It's just a matter of spending the time and being open to all kinds of influences, even those seemingly unrelated to the matter at hand. By remaining open, internalizing the 7 laws of seduction, and making interacting with many different women a part of your life so habitual that you don't even think about it anymore, the universe will open up and show you the way to mastery. And remember, it's always better to open than not to open. It's always better to do a lame approach than none at all. It's always better to show masculine-feminine polarity than not. It's always better to push the interaction to the extreme than not. Go out and enjoy the journey. If you would like to contact me with any questions, requests for advice, or success stories, then send me a message at troyfrancis7laws@gmail.com or visit http://troyfrancisspua.wordpress.com. Recommended resources. The ideas presented in this book are an amalgam of many different influences I have taken from countless works on seduction in books, magazines, and online blogs and forums, overlaid with my own thoughts and perspectives, honed by many thousands of hours of practice out in the field interacting with real women. As I stated at the beginning, the sheer volume of this material, which can vary drastically in quality, is in itself problematic, particularly for the newcomer or the time-pressed. My belief, therefore, is that the 7 Laws of Seduction is sufficiently comprehensive to be the only book you will need on the subject. If you study and internalize the principles here and take sufficient action, then your sex life will undoubtedly improve significantly. That said, there are a few resources that I think are excellent and have helped me a great deal in my journey. I list them below. Sperm Wars by Robin Baker, the Blueprint DVD set by Tyler Durden, RSDnation.com, a fantastic online treasure chest of video blogs from the RSD instructors on seduction, self-development, and related topics, attraction formula and text game by Paul Janka Krauser.com website by Krauser the Game and the Rules of the Game by Neil Strauss, The Rational Male by Rollo Tomasi de Game.com videos